This is Mickey Quinn, the official announcer of today's Two Mics podcast.
And I'd like to wish Mr. Mike Parry a very, very good Friday morning. Welcome to the show, Mr. Parry.
Yes, welcome, Mike. Great to be here again in this studio. Fantastic. Getting the buzz, getting the vibes, looking at all the issues in football, outside of football, things that are relevant to the world. Because let's face it, at this time of the morning, when people are slumbering, you and I can put the world right.
Yeah, don't poke at me quite as aggressively as that. I thought you were coming right into my eye.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the people that are listening to the show are not actually sleeping because, you can't listen to the radio while you're asleep. So we've got loads and loads of callers that we're going to take.
Oh,
None of whom are actually asleep at this particular moment in time.
No. These are the wise people. These are the wise people who tune in, and I know all that. But what I'm saying is that what we're doing is we're using the calmness of the rest of the world, not the audience that are listening to us, the calmness of the rest of the world who are sleeping.
Well, they're not sleeping in every part of the world.
Well, in most parts of the world.
What about Australia?
Well, in Australia and Singapore and South America, they won't be sleeping because, of course, it's the other time of the day. You know what I mean?
North America.
Or even in North America.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry.
It's actually quite a small part of the world that's asleep at the moment.
Why don't you just shut up and let me get on with it? I'm trying to explain why.
Because you're fundamentally wrong as ever.
No, why we are reaching out to a massive audience of millions around the world, many of whom are up and around and bright, but in this country,
There's not much point in reaching out to the sleeping.
In this country, we are dealing with a somnolent audience, bar those who are wise enough to have stayed up to listen to the wisdom we can exude over the next 3 hours, and then, you've got another hour to try and catch up with...
Well, it's just as well we've got 3 hours.
With all the intelligentsia I've been giving you.
Well, it's just as well we've got 3 hours. You've just spent 4 minutes saying hello to me.
Well, that's all right. I can say hello.
Fine. By the way, I
want to talk about
the radio. Before you go any further,
I want to talk about Neil Lennon. I
know you want to talk about Neil Lennon, but I've just spotted. You've been trying to keep it from me. I don't know why.
No.
You've got a tin of peas.
Well,
why have you got a tin of peas?
Well, that's not a tin of peas, actually.
It is a tin of peas.
No, it isn't. Look,
I'm going
I'll
to
show
take
you
a picture of it, and I'm going to show people it is a tin of peas. They give it to me over here.
All right.
British Garden peas.
You can take a picture if you want, but, you can make a fool of
yourself. They look as if they're a tin of peas from about the 1950s.
You're going to make a fool of yourself.
How long have you had those?
You're going to... about a week.
Really?
Yeah.
You've had them for a week? These don't look like peas that you would get in any other part of Britain other than about 1955. Well, why? There's nothing in the tin of peas.
Hang on, let me explain. Have you taken a picture of this yet?
No, I haven't, no.
Right, we'll take it. You're going to make an absolute fool of yourself, okay?
Yeah.
If you want to take a picture of these peas, that's fine by me.
Okay, go on.
But then you've got to put it out, and I'll tell you what a fool you are.
Well, what's in the peas?
Right, well, I'll tell you. Right, now, this is a tin. You're actually right, it is a tin of peas. But it's not. There are no peas in it. This is Tesco British Garden peas, OK, bought from Tesco's. Picture on the front of a bowl with peas in it. But there is no lid on it.
You can go to other supermarkets, of course.
There's no lid on it, OK?
Yeah.
Right, now, you can hear a rattling noise.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
You haven't started collecting money for yourself.
No.
Things are not that bad, are they?
No. I'll tell you what this is. Those are my car keys. Now, if I reach in... No.
Why have you got car keys in a tin?
I'll show you. Now, what is this? This is a Mercedes car fob.
Very nice.
And a leather thing and a metal...
Well, my goodness me, they've upgraded them a bit since
Mercedes-Benz, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason... And I keep my car keys in this tin all the time now. And so when I... Hang on.
Sorry. Why?
Well, I'm telling you. And then when I leave here tonight, I'll put this tin in my pocket like I'm doing now, in my new tailor-made shorts.
You made shorts again?
Yeah, but they're tailor-made, these.
It's not even that cold.
Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I've become aware of a new form of cybercrime.
Yeah.
And what happens is, if you've got a decent car and you get out of it and you're walking away from it, some guy can zap you with a zapper.
Yeah, we did a thing on this the other night.
Absolutely.
Actually.
They can zap you with a zapper and get all the details off the key fob about the code to get into the car.
Well, I'm not sure if they can do that.
Yes, they can.
I think what they can do is they can manage to sort of get into the car and then they can mess about with the diagnostics.
No, they can actually do it whilst you're walking away.
It's not like Dr. Evil sitting there with some kind of
Dr.
laser
Evil.
bulb.
Yeah, very much so. Point to laser beam up. Now, what I do is, because I'm smarter than the average bear, I drop my keys into this tin, right? And because... I don't know what you're laughing at.
Well, why do you think that's going to help?
Because it's now got a metal barrier around it and they can't get the details.
Why don't you just wrap them in silver foil? Be a bit less obtrusive.
Well, that'd be very stupid, wouldn't it? Walk around... Well, you'd have to carry one of those boxes of silver foil around with you from Tesco's or something like that.
Well, sure, you just have one piece of silver foil and you take the silver foil out, take your keys out, and then wrap the
I'm
keys
not sure
back in
silver foil would be thick enough anyway. This is a metal tin. It's made of tin.
It's open at the top, though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It deflects around the keys. It deflects.
You don't have to keep rattling it, by the way.
The power beam.
People listening on digital radio will be going nuts now.
The power beam just bounces off my tin, and therefore my keys are safe and nobody can get into it. Now,
Don't you think there's a danger of some kind of collateral damage to your nether region?
No, not at all. Now, you will see I've got a new wallet. And what's this made of?
That's made of metal.
Metal.
You told me about this before.
And what
Now, a
happens-
metal wallet sounds bizarre as well.
Now, what happens when I open it? You see my credit cards. I'm not going to show you those for too long, so you'll nick the numbers.
Let's see how many you've got.
No.
It doesn't look like you can hold too many in there.
Well, there's only 2 in here
Two
at the
credit
moment.
cards.
That's all. A credit card and a debit card. That's all I need. But once again, if these were in an ordinary wallet in my top pocket like this, and I was walking down the street, some guy with a zapper, another Dr. Evil type fella, could point that zapper at... I don't know what you're laughing at, Mike. I'm sorry.
You're so paranoid.
Well, I won't get
How
my...
are you going to protect yourself from the TB-infested cats? That's what I don't know.
Hang on. The guy could, if I had an ordinary leather wallet, the guy could zap the wallet,
He could,
right?
that's true.
And therefore take all the details off my credit cards.
You know what he could also do? He could reach into your pocket and just nick it.
No. I'm very
Oh,
careful.
look, he's got a shiny credit
No,
card
no,
holder.
no,
and
no.
that might be worth some money as well.
No. In all my suits, I have a button on the inside pocket to close it, or a zip.
What if he's got a
to make-
giant magnet?
To make sure nobody can...
Well, what if he's got a giant magnet? You could just suck it out of your shirt into the air.
You're being stupid now, and I'm being practical. So, again, the metal wallet, which I have here, that doesn't rattle too
No,
much,
it doesn't
folks.
rattle.
But
Well,
that's
but
the...
you can't put that in the same pocket as you can you?
No, I can't. But it means that, again, the zapper gets deflected away. My credit cards are safe. Meanwhile, dolts like you, who don't take precautions on protecting their wealth, I don't want my wealth stolen by some goon, will find themselves amiss.
Well, I'm glad you think that you're so completely now and utterly protected.
I am.
Don't forget that people can still hack into your computer. They can still find your bank account details from there, and they can suck all the money at your bank account without even seeing you.
But I am
Would you
reducing...
stop rattling that, please?
I am reducing the risks all the time.
Not really.
So, that is not... See...
So is this your new? This is your paranoia of the week, is it?
It's not paranoia of the week. It's a very practical way of making sure...
I've never seen anything so ridiculous.
It's a very practical way of making sure nobody nicks my car. Now, if you put that picture out now, you're going to look like a complete idiot.
So you've got this really cool-looking car, right?
Yep.
Beautiful Mercedes, relatively new, despite the fact that smoke pours out of it and all the wheels are flat.
Right.
You know, when you stand there looking like Mr. Cool, trying to pick up the first Mrs. Parry,
Yes.
instead of just, casually and nonchalantly taking out your key and going click,
Yes.
you take this rattling,
Well, I do,
can of
actually,
keys
yeah.
out of your pocket.
I do, and then I take my keys out of my can.
If I was passing at the time, I'd think you were trying to steal the car.
Well, no, not at all. I'm trying to protect the car. That's the whole point about it.
No, I know, but the way you're dressed and with the can of peas that you've got, you don't look like the kind of guy that should be driving a Mercedes.
Actually, I have thought of maybe not peas. I was going to get a baked bean tin, but
Or
I
why don't you
couldn't
get at
find
least
one.
something organic, perhaps?
Maybe something organic. You could be right, yeah.
I think you should try silver foil. I think you find it
No,
takes
no,
up
it
a lot
won't.
less
No,
room.
no.
And it won't work, and you'll have the same effect.
This tin's just a little bit too big. I was thinking to get one of those corn tins. You know, the Jolly Green Giant corn.
Yeah, smaller ones.
Yeah, it's a bit smaller, and it might just
Why don't
fit
you
in
get
there.
a can of sardines? Because you eat those anyway.
Because they're full of oil, and therefore I believe
you
that
can clean them out.
Well, yeah, but it would be you'd never really think you'd got rid of the sort of the oil inside a sardine can. So I washed this
I
peas
think
can
you're getting
out,
more bizarre by the day.
and no, I'm not. I'm just getting practical. To have a metal protective.
What makes you think? I mean, we did speak to a guy
this is
about
like
this.
Full Metal Jacket, you see.
It is like Full Metal Jacket. We did speak to a guy about this, and yes, there are things like this happening, but it's not very widespread, to be honest.
Yeah, but who knows if it's only 1 in 100 to get the cars nicked like that? That 1 in 100 will not now
Stop
be
rattling
me.
it.
Because I've
Unbelievable
protected my
stuff.
keys.
Hey, by the way, did you see Ali Ross's column in The Sun today?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, he does a lookalike competition.
Yes.
And in the lookalike competition, you actually were the runner-up. Did
I
you
know.
that?
Oh, that was terrible that I'm
You
the
didn't
runner-up.
mention it to me.
Well, I don't like being runners-up, you see. Unless you're a winner, I don't think there's anything
This is
to
Ali
boast
Ross,
about.
of course, the TV columnist in The Sun. He says
Yeah.
the runner-up this week is Mike Porky Parry from TalkSport and Benny from ABBA.
Yeah. I know.
But
And
he's
who was
used-
the winner? Who was
he's
the winner?
used two rather unfortunate pictures. The winner is Jurgen Klopp and a minion from the Despicable Me movie.
Oh,
which I
yeah,
don't
I've
think
never
you've
seen that. Never seen that. No, Jurgen Klopp's a gregarious-looking face.
Yes, he's quite an interesting character. He's got massive teeth.
Yes,
massive
yeah.
teeth. I'm
Yeah.
still kind of recovering from the shock of you and your peas, but
Yeah.
Mike Porky Parry's here. He's going to be here for the duration of the show tonight. Of course, we've got lots more to do. We're going to be talking about his phobias. We're going to be talking about Led Zeppelin, and also, of course, we'll be telling you all the transfer rumours as well, and taking your calls 08717 22 3344. This is TalkSport.
Insane in the membrane. Insane in the membrane. Insane in the
This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is sitting next to me. I think I've got over the shock of the garden peas, but lots of you are already sending in pictures. I've had one from a giant magnet that's been sent in as well, because you could worry. I mean, that could be the way you lose all this stuff. But also, keep your other suggestions coming for other places where Mike Parry could keep his keys safe.
And what addresses are they sending these things to?
They could send them to the postal address here if you like, but I would suggest Twitter.
Yeah,
Why
I would
not?
as well.
At
yeah.
TS Extra Time, at Mike Parry 8, although you don't seem to have your phone with you today.
Well, unfortunately, I left it at home. It's the first time I've done that for years. But the thing is, you can send to at Mac Parade if you like, because you think you're being, taking the mickey out of me, and that I'm some sort of, odd character goes around with my keys in a can.
I would never suggest that.
I am very happy if you want to send me a note to at Mac Parade or to old MG.
IROMG, or at TS Extra Time, of course, as well.
Yeah, I will respond to you and reply, and I will put you straight. Don't you worry about that.
Okay, well, we're not worried about it.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to take some calls here, because we've been talking in the first hour about the ludicrous amount of money involved in one game of football, 134 million quid.
Yeah, it's a myth, though, isn't it?
Well, it's not really a myth.
all that. It's not that money's
Well, hang
not.
on, Cardiff City got 60 million for going down.
Yeah, I know, but
It's not really a myth to get 134 million for going up, is it?
well, Everton got 87 million for finishing fifth in the Premier League. So where's the other 60 million coming from?
What do you mean?
Well, you said 135 million.
Well, 135 million is what they get for going up into the Premier
No,
League,
they don't.
because they do
No,
get
they
it over.
don't.
Yes, they do. They get it over a period of 5 years.
Well, I'm sorry,
and
mate.
even if they go down, they get these parachute payments. That's the whole point.
It's all relative to how much you pay your players. At the end of the day, it's worth nothing, because if you go up to the Premier League, you've got to pay the players a lot more money than you pay them in the Championship, and all that is swallowed up by the extra money you take in.
That doesn't make it right, mate. That's my argument, because everybody else is
Well,
suffering.
it's all relative.
Well, yeah, it's relative.
It's like
but
poverty. Poverty's relative. There isn't really any poverty in this country because it's relative to wealthier people. Poverty.
No, poverty
was
is
when you
when
didn't
you
have any
can't-
central heating. Well, everybody's got
Yeah.
central heat now. Poverty was when you didn't have a television. Everybody's got three televisions.
Everybody hasn't got three televisions for a start, and quite a lot of people can't afford central heating to heat their house.
Yeah,
We're gonna
poverty
talk
was when
to-
you couldn't afford food. Everybody can afford food now.
Yeah, well, not everybody
Poverty
can.
was when you couldn't go
Well,
to the
just shut
Algarve
up
on
for a minute.
holiday.
Just shut up for
Everybody
a minute.
goes to
Let's
the
talk to
Algarve
Steve,
now.
who's a Man United fan. Steve, a very good morning to you.
How you doing, boys? You all right?
Yeah,
pretty good,
indeed.
Steve, thank you,
Yeah,
pretty
we're talking
good.
to a man who keeps his keys in a can of peas and doesn't believe in poverty. What have you got for us?
Well, to be perfectly honest, mate, I'll keep my keys in a cigarette tin.
Yeah, good man. Good man.
You
You've
keep your
learned.
keys in a cigarette tin.
You roll up tin and all that. That's where I keep mine.
Why do you keep them in there?
It's just simpler. I don't lose them.
Yeah. Good man. Good man. You're a sensible boy.
Well, I mean, at least the
Practical.
cigarette tin has got a top, though. Your can of peas doesn't appear to have a top. Would you stop? I'm going to take those off you if you're going to keep rattling them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Steve. Anyway, what did you want to say about the cost of living and ticket
Well, it's
prices?
just, to be perfectly honest, it's a nightmare. I mean, I'm a single working dad. I've got 2 kids and a wife at home, right? And to be perfectly honest, I've got a good job. Right? I work for DHL. I'm a fuel tanker driver, and I'm on a good screw.
Good
right?
man. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I took my wife down to Man United the once, and it cost me, it was something like 120 quid, 140 quid for the tickets, then the fuel to get there, all the food. I think it was about £300 for the weekend, and to be perfectly honest, I was like disgusted.
Yeah.
I used to be a season ticket holder before I met my wife.
Yeah.
And it didn't really bother me. I was single. I didn't care.
Steve,
But
if you're a fuel tanker driver, isn't there a sort of quote, a bit of a perk at the job?
I wish so, mate. I really do wish.
Well,
But no.
you know what, Steve? When I was a teenager, I worked in a 24-hour petrol station, okay? And Stanlow Oil Refinery, Ellesmere Port, which you may have heard of, nearby.
Yeah.
And these guys used to turn up in the middle of the night with tankers full of knocked-off petrol and wanted, seriously, and tried to sell it to the garage owner on the cheap.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting
That's
you'd get
good.
into. I'm not suggesting for a
Steve,
moment
Steve,
you
Steve
get into that business,
Steve sounds like he knows what you're talking about. But, of course, he's not involved in that kind of activity.
But Steve,
Oh, no.
you know that sort of thing does happen to the more, amongst the more unscrupulous members of your profession, that's all, of which you
Yeah.
are not one, of course.
No, I am not, no.
No.
So-
Now, listen, mate, I've got some hints for you because the cost of living is very high, right? Here's 2 great tips for you. By the way, why did you describe yourself as a single man but then told us you had 2 kids and a wife?
Well, no, when I was a single man.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Well, listen,
When I
mate.
was a single man, I had the season ticket. I was always up Manchester. I was following Man United wherever I could. But
well,
now I'm a father. It's just now. I'd
Well-
rather sit there and watch Sky TV.
You've got
That
your
is my little thing.
You've got your priorities right. Now, listen, 2 tips here to save a bit of money on the cost of living, okay? Because I'm a student of this. First of all, Go into your supermarkets before they close at about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. These are usually the the express ones, and
Is that when you get your peas and your corned beef?
Well, what I'm saying is they'll have a load of stuff in there which has been down priced because you get towards the end of the day, so you get it for half price or something like that. They usually have a special
These are
section.
Porky Parry's tips to
hang on.
avoid poverty.
Yeah, honestly.
It's actually true. It's actually true because I do stop off at Tesco's Express.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think I get my sandwiches and stuff for £1 or £1.50 when they're usually about
Aren't they
£3-4
a bit stale, Steve?
No, they're good
I'm
until
not
the following
asking you,
day.
I'm asking him.
They're good until the following day, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah, all same.
Don't you feel a bit ashamed hanging about by the discount aisle, Steve?
To be perfectly honest, now why should I?
Exactly, mate.
Oh,
well
I would.
done.
I'd feel ashamed standing around there.
And the other thing, Steve, is I've just discovered actually that I was paying £1 a day to my newsagent to deliver the papers to my house. Couldn't believe it.
Why?
£1 a day. Well, because it's the
Why don't
delivery
you just go out
charge.
and get them yourself?
Well, now I do. I'm always
You're
up.
always telling me you're out walking. Why don't you just stop at the paper shop on your way down to the Ducks?
Because I start off so early, 4:35 in the morning, the paper shop's not open. So I usually have them delivered while I'm out, and I come back to find them on the map.
Why
But
don't
in
you get them on
future,
the way back then?
Well, I might in future. I might.
Yeah. So you go and buy a cheap sandwich, save yourself £1, and you
Yeah.
spend it on doing something you could have done yourself.
Well, that's absolutely true.
Genius.
It's not
I'm
good.
sorry, Steve. I've got to have to let you go.
Yeah.
Steve, thanks very
Thanks,
much indeed.
Steve.
Steve, there, a tanker driver, says that there is such a thing as poverty. He does, have to
No, he
go
just
and
got-
stand buying cheap food. So all of this
Yeah.
nonsence that you're coming out with, that people aren't affected by, it's all relative. It's not true.
These tankers, by the way, mate. I mean, honestly, these guys used to turn up. And they have, but the thing is, if you fill up a tanker with thousands of gallons in it, when you sort of turn the tap off, so to speak, the drips alone amount to maybe a couple of hundred gallons.
A couple of gallons.
Couple of hundred gallons.
Couple of hundred
Yeah, a
gallons.
couple of hundred gallons. I mean, they take 4,500 gallons. These things, yeah, and they turn up, and the deal was they put it into some spare underground storage tank, and then they get a note from the petrol station owner for 20 gallons of petrol and things like that.
Yeah, but
It's
they
a
can't
racket,
all be doing
terrible
that, can
racket.
they? I bet they found ways of making sure that doesn't happen
Well-
anymore, because they've got CCTV at all these places now as well.
Well, the thing is, I used to have to get up on the top of the tanker, which has got a walkway on the top.
Yeah, I remember those, yeah.
And you have these dipsticks that you have to put in, and that's where
you
the word.
were the dipstick.
No, I wasn't the dipstick. I was waiting for that from you. That's very unoriginal.
Well, it was
And-
just too
and,
obvious to
And you
miss,
had to put the dipstick in to make sure the tankers had been drained.
Yeah.
And if you put one in and there was still like 3 or 4 inches, and the guy would just sort of give you that knowing look,
Yeah.
and the wink and all that kind of stuff. And as I was 17, and this guy was like an 18-stone giant taxi driver who would have knocked me off the top of the
You just
tanker.
went along with it.
I just went along with it, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're admitting, I mean, it's a very dangerous thing to do these days, admitting to felonies that took place a long time ago.
Well, no, I wasn't party to a crime, but I was.
No, well, I'm glad we're relieved to
I
hear
was
that.
party to a blind eye moment.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just looking
Bit
the
like
other
Nelson,
way.
actually.
Now, let me tell you about this because we want to talk about Neil Lennon coming down to the south
Yes.
of England, but also about David Moyes going up to Celtic. And I mean, obviously, the police are investigating what may or may not have happened.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Up at that wine bar in Clitheroe, he's on the front pages. Some of the papers we'll have a look at a little bit later on. But he's not having a great year, old David Moyes, is he?
He's not having a great year, is he? And, the allegations here is that he was in Clitheroe. He'd been in a restaurant, right? And he came out of the restaurant, there was a wine bar opposite, and he started getting a bit of lip from a load of people who'd been drinking, which you can understand. And he has to accept he's going to take that. He's been branded as having failed at Manchester United, perhaps unfairly, but he has.
Yeah.
Compensated with £1 million payoff, or millions of pounds in a payoff, I would imagine, and that's the price you pay for trying to compete at the very top. But point is, you don't have to take abuse in this life, and I quite admire David Moyes for reacting. I'm not for a minute.
Nobody knows what happened because they're saying
oh,
the police are saying they've heard various different versions. They're looking at CCTV pictures to see what the actual situation was.
I am no way alleging that David Moyes got involved in any sort of physical confrontation or whatever, but there seemed to have been some activity around him, which you can appreciate, him being a very famous man and the centre of massive attention over the last few weeks. And I hope it all works out for Davey because he's basically
what
a
about
very
him
good
going
man.
to Celtic? Do you think he would ever go to Celtic? Because, I mean, that's, in a way, as much as Celtic is a fantastic club and everybody talks about how great it is, to go from Everton, which was, basically kind of competing every season for a Champions League place,
Yes.
in a very competitive league,
Yes.
it's a bit of a come down, isn't it?
Honestly, I don't know what manager of any calibre will apply for the Celtic job on the basis that your first season's Premier League title in Scotland is free because there's no Rangers.
Yeah.
Rangers will be there the season after, won't they? That's right, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, what manager worth his salt is going to go there just to literally go through a football parade where at the end of the season you'll be 40 points better off than the second team?
And if he doesn't like being recognised in Clitheroe, you know, he's going to have a lot worse time in Glasgow.
Of course he is,
when Martin O'Neill was there, you know, people were throwing things on his lawn and setting fire to trees and stuff like that.
Yeah,
all sorts of horrible stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest, David Moyes has now going to re-establish himself, and although he could say go to Celtic and start putting some silverware in I think it'd be meaningless, absolutely meaningless in the first season, honestly. And also, Mike, he'd have to go there and absolutely guarantee to give them a clean sweep of the Premier League title, the Scottish Cup,
Cups,
League Cup, absolutely, and a fair show in Europe. You know what I mean?
To get into the last 16 of the Champions League.
Well, I think that's virtually impossible for the Celtic team at the moment. But I mean, you'd have to try and aim for that. That's true. But no, to be perfectly honest, I hope that job at Celtic goes to a young, aspiring Scottish manager because to me, any manager who goes up, I mean, even if Malky Mackay went now. Right, and he's one of the names on the list. It's a real cop-out. I mean, Malky Mackay's at the stage now where he's got to re-establish himself after the Cardiff fiasco, and surely he can only do that in the Premier League, can't he? In England, not in Scotland. Yeah,
I know, I think I totally agree with you, just for once.
Yeah.
Mike Porky Parry and myself, Mike Graham, are the two Mikes. This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here with me. We are the two Mikes together. We're now going to talk to a man by the name of Nick Harcourt, who it says here, Mike, is the most influential DJ in America.
Wow.
Do you know why we're going to talk to him?
Yeah, because he is the most influential DJ in America.
That's one reason we're going to talk to him.
And that's why he belongs on this show.
That's exactly right. And one of the reasons we're talking to him, of course, is because you just heard Led Zeppelin have a whole lot of love. Led Zeppelin are being done for a track that they wrote back in 1971 called Stairway to Heaven, which I'm sure you'll recognise when you hear it, which has made, would you believe, £334 million
Unbelievable.
Since it was released. And that's only up until about 2009 as well. Let's talk to Nick now, because this is a guy who knows all there is to know about this story. Basically, what's happening is that Led Zepp are being sued by the estate of a late guitarist by the name of Randy California, who was a bit of an old hippie, I think. Nick, a very good morning and welcome to the show.
Well, you're making me smile, but yeah, good morning, guys. Good evening here.
Indeed.
Now, what's going on with this story? I mean, basically, Led Zeppelin wrote this song a very, very long time ago, as long ago as about 1970. Put it on Led Zeppelin 4, or the Four Symbols album, as some people would call it. And now, the estate of the late guitarist Randy California claim that they stole the song from him.
Well, have you listened to it?
Well, we're about to listen to it, so why don't we do that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's have the two songs, John.
Now, the first one was Stairway to Heaven, wasn't
That's right.
it?
Yeah, very
the
good.
Led Zeppelin one,
Yeah, there's no flies on you, Mr. Parry.
Thank you.
The second one is Randy California from a Los Angeles-based psychedelic band called Spirit, which was written in 68.
Right.
I have to say, Nick, the second one doesn't bear much resemblance to the first one, in my view.
Oh, it does. I think they're identical.
What?
I do think that... Nick, I think you're absolutely right there. They are identical series of chords and bars, yeah?
If you listen to the opening riffs of the Spirit song and you listen to the opening riff of Stairway to Heaven, it's pretty much the same riff.
No, it's not. Surely not.
Cheers.
Well, play that one, guys.
Yeah.
We want to do it again?
But do you guys have the original?
All right, so stop that one now and play the other one.
There you go.
It's identical.
It's not identical.
It is. It is. It's
No,
absolutely
don't think so.
identical. It's absolutely identical. Nick, you're absolutely right.
I just don't think it's. I mean, you can say that it's got a similar kind of tempo. You could say that even a couple of the notes might sound the same, but it's going in a different direction. Surely,
no, not at all. Nick, you're absolutely right, because I'm afraid that my colleague in the studio is tone deaf.
No, actually, I've got a perfect musical ear. I'll bring you my Royal Academy. I'll bring you my Royal Academy music certificate for oral music.
Ridiculous, Nick. The point is that even if it sounds identical, that in itself is not a crime in music writing terms, because we all know that musicians have been influenced for decades by those who've preceded them. Yeah.
Well, here's the story as I understand it.
Right.
And this is the first I've heard about it. The story just broke a couple of days ago, I guess, with the lawsuit. It's interesting timing, obviously, 40-odd years later. But when you hear it, and you hear the story that Spirit were on tour with Led Zeppelin in 1969, the bands played together and shared the same stage together. So then Jimmy Page goes off to his cottage in Wales to write Led Zeppelin 4, and that riff to me sounds the same. Now, you're absolutely right. The musicians have been borrowing from each other for years, and I think today, in today's climate, even more so than ever, you will hear a lot of songs that sound the same.
Well, now they call it sampling, don't they?
If those guys have made £400 million or whatever it is off one of the most iconic songs ever recorded, and the opening riff, I can remember the very first time I ever heard that. I might be a little bit older than you guys. I remember when I heard it, and that opening riff is the opening of what is an opus of a song.
Yeah, but what about the rest? What about the rest of this song by Spirit? What does that sound like? I mean, does it have Robert Plant singing majestically, or Jimmy Page doing the most fantastic guitar solo at the end of it? No,
not at all. And of course, your point is well taken. But the opening riff is the same, and I think that they should give him 10% of the song.
Well, I mean, that.
But he's dead anyway, though, isn't he?
Well, the estate could get.
Yeah, but so he doesn't even get it. So a bunch of money grubbing lawyers actually get the money. Isn't that the point as well, Nick?
It is, but Nick, listen.
I'm asking Nick the question.
Yes, I know, but Nick's time is short, and he doesn't want to be taking his time.
It's even shorter when you're answering the questions for him.
By you asking him ridiculous questions.
Nick, would you mind if Mr. Parry answered for you as your spokesman on this interview?
Now, Nick, what I want to put to you is this. The most famous incident of alleged plagiarism that I can remember being plagiarism.
Plagiarism?
Yeah, being a huge Beatles fan was when George Harrison... George Harrison was sued by somebody when he wrote and got to number one with his first solo record, My Sweet Lord. The album and the number one went to the top of the charts on both sides of the Atlantic. But he was sued, wasn't he?
Well, he ended up, I think, having to sign over the rights to that song. And the song, when you look at it, is pretty much the same song all the way through.
Yeah.
I understand the point that this is not the same song. But when you have a riff that is the opening to one of the most iconic songs ever recorded, and that riff was previously written and recorded by somebody else, there's a case there. And to be honest with you, Led Zeppelin, I mean, this is not new. I mean, Led Zeppelin have been accused many times before of lifting sections of songs for some of their early stuff, some old blues songs. Don't ask me to name them. But this is not a new one for them. And to be honest with you, I think they should just make it go away and say, you know what? Let's give him 10% of the royalties.
But isn't the problem with this, Nick, that in the end, it's all fairly subjective? I mean, you say it sounds similar. I don't think it sounds similar enough. Mike Parry, who is actually tone deaf, if you'd ever heard him sing, you'd know that, he thinks they're identical. In the end, if it goes to a court of law, they'll only really be comparing one expert's opinion with another. I mean, you might even get called as an expert because you are, the most influential DJ in America, right?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, I think it is the same, and somebody else says it is the same, suddenly, they might have a successful lawsuit. But who on earth is going to judge this?
I would say that they'll call experts, and the experts will say there is a striking similarity between that opening riff.
And the thing is, Nick, as well, it doesn't matter what the rest of the song sounds like. The point is...
suddenly you're a legal expert now as well.
Excuse me. Just shut up a minute. The point is that the idea for a song and the romance of the song, the drift of the song, the power of the song comes to you in the first few bars of what you hear, and that is... Sure, will you?
You've been smoking some of that funny marijuana from Colorado.
And you can see exactly where the inspiration came from. And for that inspiration alone, they should pay $30 million. I totally agree. I get inspired by things. I listen to people. I'm a student of
enough.
Academica.
We've got a guest on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just let him speak.
Yeah.
Nick, sorry, we've got a music teacher we're going to talk to in a minute who thinks that it's not at all similar. But thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. Do you want to give your station a plug while you're on?
Yeah, it's my pleasure, guys. I tell you what, though, I think you guys are a little over-caffeinated right now.
Yeah, well, talk to Mr. Parry about that.
I do a morning show at a radio station in Los Angeles called KCSN, and I also host a TV show over here called Guitar Center Sessions.
Excellent.
So, pleasure talking to you guys.
Not at all. Listen, I'm going to call you, Nick, when it turns out that Led Zeppelin have lost this case.
If you ever want me as a guest on your show, Nick, I'm very happy to do it.
He's gone.
Yeah, well,
you get very vociferous at the moment. Let's talk to Sean, who's a music teacher in Fleet. Hello, Sean.
Oh, hi, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Yeah, Sean.
Hopefully you'll have a bit more luck getting a word in edgeways here than our last guest. But what do you think, Sean?
I'll try, Mike. Well, I'm a guitar teacher, and the riffs are very similar in tempo, obviously, but the Spirit song, the 68 version, has got descending semitones in the bass.
Yeah. That's what I was saying when the music was going in opposite directions.
Yeah, which the Led Zeppelin one has, but the Led Zeppelin one has got ascending semitones on the treble strings of the guitar. It's a much more difficult piece to play, and also they both resolve, but they resolve to totally different chords.
So in your view, they're completely different pieces of music and completely different chords, so one could not have been copied from the other?
I think they're totally different, yeah.
Well, hang on, Sean. You've just said...
He's a music teacher, by the way.
Yeah. Descending semitones in the bass and ascending semitones in the treble, right?
Well,
I don't agree with you. I listened to this piece of music and I did not come to that conclusion with the structure of the composition.
Well, the Jimmy Page version is a much more complex version to play. You have to use at least 2 or 3 fingers to play that piece.
Yeah, but that's because he's a better guitar player, so he knew what he could do more with it. So he nicked the original idea and then built upon it.
Well, that's possible, but Randy California's version is using open strings and just a descending bass line, whereas the Led Zeppelin version is much more complex.
I think you're absolutely right, Sean. I think you're absolutely right. And the idea that Mike Parry knows more about music than you do is typical. I mean, you just came out and said you were a big Beatles expert after you failed your Beatles exam last week. Now, let's just, before we do anything else, let's hear these 2 pieces of music again. First of all, Stairway. In fact, let's do them the other way round this time. Let's do the hippie, the crazed hippies first. So it's going down, right? Down. It's going down.
I'm listening.
It's going down. I think we play it longer. The more you hear it, the less it sounds like Stairway to Heaven. It's going down. Down. Hear it? It's going down.
I'm listening.
It's going down.
Well,
right, let's hear Stairway to Heaven, which you'll hear is going to go up. It's going up. See? It's going up.
You only know that because Sean, the music teacher, just told you.
I told you it before.
You
idiot,
it's going up. You couldn't interpret a piece of music if it was written on a fish and slapped around your face.
It's going up. Hear it?
I know it's going
ascending.
up. That's why it's called Stairway to Heaven. You.
Oh, was it? I didn't realise they called it after the ascending chords.
It's not called Down to the Cellar, is it? It's called Stairway to Heaven. Heaven's upwards.
Down to the Cellar.
Yeah.
That was one they tried a bit earlier, but they said it wasn't a very successful name. It was a Deep Purple song, wasn't it?
I fell down the stairs to the cellar.
Yeah. I think it's completely conclusive. I'm Mike Parry. I'm not Mike Parry. He's Mike Parry. I'm Mike Graham.
Yeah.
TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. He's Mike Parry. This is the only show on radio, really, where you can have a bit of Stairway to Heaven, Down to the Cellar as well, as you said quite rightly there. A little bit of talk about Mr. Neil Lennon going to somewhere in the Premier League or possibly the Championship. And, of course, coming up, we're going to be talking about one of those great sort of things that worry human beings, and that is phobias. Because we're going to be talking to Dr. Sally Winston coming up, who's a phobia and anxiety psychologist and author. Because you were telling me the other day that you've got a phobia of of funerals
Yeah,
and
but
hearses and that kind of thing.
I only told you that because I came across a story in which there's some poor woman who's got a phobia of wardrobes.
Right.
You know, she's walking past a high street shop and there's a wardrobe in the window. Oh, you know, she gets has a heart attack. And when she's looking round,
But she's got quite a good
department
reason for it, I
stores.
think.
Well, she has. When she was a kid, she watched one of these films, one of these horror films, and the zombie's arm came out of the wardrobe, you know, and grabbed somebody by the throat.
Right.
And it so terrified her, she's been shocked. I mean, so she hasn't got any wardrobes
She
in
can't
her own
even go
house.
and watch The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
No,
can
she can't. No, she can't. She
Can't read
couldn't.
the book or anything.
No, absolutely. And she has no wardrobes in her own home. You know, they've got to be fitted with sliding doors because the idea of a wardrobe with a door that opens
Well, so she has got
terrifies her.
wardrobes then?
No. She's got closets to put her clothes, but
Well,
she hasn't got
surely that's the
wardrobes.
same thing.
No, it's not. It's not the same thing at all. But believe me, it's not the same thing. It's the wardrobe door thing that
Oh, I
terrifies
see.
her. And what I
Or
said
a
to you was,
standalone sort of piece of
yeah,
furniture.
that's right. That's right. Like a big monster, you know,
Yeah.
like a big monster looming in the bedroom in the dark and
Right.
all that. Is that wardrobe going to move?
Well, it
you know,
depends how tall you are, I suppose.
well, I suppose it does. But no, but anyway, so you said to me, isn't that odd? And I said, well, not really. I said, you see, the thing is, Mike, when I leave here, after I leave here at 5 o'clock, right,
Yeah.
I'll be going home on a route down into Surrey, and towards the end of my journey, I pass a funeral home. And I always have to do a diversion and try and go another way. I can't stand going past it because the lights are always on. And the lights... No, seriously.
But nobody's home.
The lights are always on because
Why?
they bring dead bodies in the night. Because, well, did you
Why?
know? Because most people die at 2 o'clock. Most people die at 2 o'clock in the morning, and so what they do is... And
We've lost a few listeners then since then.
Well,
It's
yeah,
10
you might
to
have
3.
done, yeah.
Blimey.
But so I'm saying this is in hospital, and what they do is then they call the ambulance. And by the way, have you ever seen a vehicle marked private ambulance?
I have seen those,
That's
yeah.
not private ambulance. That's a meat wagon. That's taking stiffs, and I don't wish to be disrespectful
I think
to
it
the
may be
dead.
too late for that.
But yeah, but
You've
I'm
already
I'm-
called them
I'm-
stiffs.
No, I don't mean to. I'm sorry. The dear departed.
Well, anyway, listen. Before you get too carried away with
Yeah.
your story,
Yeah,
because
sure.
because I want you to
Sure.
explain this story to Dr. Sally Winston, because she's going to be
Okay.
able to help you. And you can tell us a bit more about it. But we've got
Yeah.
Robert here, who's an Arsenal fan in Barking, funnily enough,
Hmm.
and he's frightened of something. He wants to tell us all about it. Robert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, fellas.
Yeah. Hi, Robert.
I am an Arsenal fan. I was brought up in Islington, grew up in Islington.
Right, but now you're in Barking.
Yeah, I met my missus in Spain, unfortunately, and then I
In
live
Spain?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well, how'd you
said.
end up in Barking then?
Well, because that's where she lived in Canning Town, and Barking was
Oh,
the
she
best
wasn't
place.
Spanish then?
No.
Oh, right.
No, we're on holiday, you fool.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
understand. I thought maybe she was a senorita.
No, she looked like a senorita. That's why I chatted to her. But
Excellent.
no, she was from Barking, from Canning Town.
How disappointing.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that advert from years ago, Robert, isn't it? You know, hello, love, where are you from? Luton Airport.
Yeah, remember that one on,
Yeah.
on the aeroplane with what's her name? What's her
Lorraine
name?
Chase.
No, it wasn't. It was the woman on the airplane with
Joan
the
Collins, you're
Mars
thinking of.
commercial. That's
Joan
it. That's
Collins.
it. You've got it,
No,
Mr.
that was the
No, that was
Martini.
later. Yeah, that was later,
Martini,
wasn't it? It was
yeah.
Cinzano. It was the same kind of thing. It was the same advert.
Yeah.
That was
They were
it.
actually all in it. Leno Rossiter.
Anyways, Robert, so what's your phobia? What are you frightened of?
It's a terrible phobia. It's cockroaches.
Well, I can't stand cockroaches, but fortunately you don't see a lot of them in this country. Now, Mike Graham and I, sitting alongside me, we used to live in New York, and I have to say, every decent apartment in New York comes with cockroaches.
Yeah.
What they on the brochure? They come with.
Well, it's not so much
almost.
on the brochure. Although, funnily enough, I mean, the most recent times I've been there, they're not quite as much in evidence. But Mike's right. When we lived there in the 80s, even if you went into a modern high-storey building,
Yeah.
there were just so many cockroaches in Manhattan that they were in every building. They couldn't get rid of them.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
complete with your own cockroaches. No, no.
So
I've got to-
why have you got a phobia of them?
I first see this movie back in the early 80s called Creep Show. It was like a
Oh, yeah, I know
movie.
Creep Show, yeah.
Do you remember that was like 6 mini movies in one movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
With the cockroaches, they ate this guy alive, and
They ate the guy alive?
yeah, at the
Oh,
end,
my
Was
God!
it about 2 o'clock in the morning when it happened?
yeah, he had a phobia of them, and he kept flushing them down the sinkhole, and kept flushing them down the
That's
sinkhole.
no good. That's where they come from. Sinks.
Yeah, but they come back to eat them anyway. My phobia was, we was in a place called Fuerteventura in Spain.
Yeah.
We'd just been out for a curry.
Was this you and your missus?
My missus, yeah, and my young child at the time.
Oh,
And
so now you've gone back to Spain with her?
yeah,
Right,
but
right.
not. Well, I met her in Ibiza, but we went back to Fuerteventura. So
right.
we had a Ruby. It was a bit of a dodgy one. So I was on the toilet coming. I was on the
is
toilet.
not gonna
I
be
don't
a
think we
story.
need to know
No,
this.
it's not.
This is not going to be a story we can't hear the end of, is it, Robert?
No. Sorry. I'll get to the point. And I was sitting on the toilet for about 10 minutes, and know when you flush the toilet where the water comes out. two of the hugest cockroaches run out of the little inlet bit.
When you say huge, how long in inches?
Only about an inch and a half. They were huge to me.
Yeah.
You know the worst thing about them is, Robert,
the big ones, you should just kick them against the skirting board.
You can see straight through them. You can see straight through cockroaches. Yeah, cockroaches
No,
are. They are.
No,
Can't you?
Depends on the kind.
Mike, they was big to me. I literally run out because in Spain and Greece and they've got marble floors and everything, and I slipped over.
Oh dear!
Broke my wrist.
Broke your wrist. That's a bit of a panic attack as well. Then.
Had you had a chance to pull your trousers up?
No, that's how I broke my wrist because my boxers were down by my.
Oh, this is a terrible
shins.
story, Robert. This is a terrible story. It's getting worse. But you can see through cockroaches. Cockroach skins are completely porous. You can see straight through
They
them.
might be porous. It doesn't make them translucent.
They are translucent. That's the word I was looking for. Not porous, translucent.
Porous means you
good
get
man.
water through.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Robert, listen, thank you very much for your story and all that.
I'm not sure I want to hear the end of that story.
No, I don't either.
But you can understand. I mean, funnily enough, you say that
can't stand
about
lavatorial humour. I'm sorry, I just can't.
No.
It's just something that leaves.
Well, I don't think it was meant to be a funny story.
Well, it's just terrible.
But here's the thing about when I was in when I went to a friend's apartment, they had treated the whole kind of basement area of the foundations of the building to try and stop the cockroaches from coming up, and instead they turned white. So the ones that used to get in this particular building, it was on East 38th Street, were white cockroaches, and they were slightly translucent. But the ones that you normally see in New York are actually, they're called German, aren't they? German cockroaches. They're brown.
Yeah, are they?
They're not translucent.
Yeah,
no.
oh God. In the New York Times, which is a broadsheet newspaper, up to 3 pages a day of adverts for people to get rid of your cockroaches.
Yeah.
Roach motels. I used to have those all over my apartment. And just to explain to our
They check
listeners,
in, but they don't check out.
that's right. It's the sticky box, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's a box with stickiness inside, and they coat them with some sort of odour that the cockroaches are attracted to. They go in, but you could come down some mornings and be like 30 cockroaches in your roach motel.
I was going to say. I mean, the only reason I was chuckling there was Dave suggested maybe you could keep your car keys in one of those. A roach motel, that'd be ideal, because then the key would stick to the sticky paper.
Jimmy P's 10. You are an idiot, honestly. If Zappa came along and zapped my keys, a roach motel.
Yeah. Actually, there's a guy outside who's just thrown a brick through your windows, driving away in your car. Why don't you tell us about this place that spooks you at 2 o'clock in the morning with all the dead bodies?
Yeah, honestly, and it's a funeral home, and I go past sometimes, and there's ambulances lining up there, and they've brought the dead from the hospitals. You see what I mean?
Well, there is a story actually this week that more and more people are dying in hospitals and being kind of removed in the middle of the night.
You've got to, because they need the bed and all that. I mean, this is part of the scandal of sending people home in the middle of the night because they need the beds for people who are dying, because people do die at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is the big scandal. But what I'm saying is, Mike, whenever I go past that place and I see the lights on, and so sometimes it might be 11 o'clock at night as I'm coming in, or sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning as I'm going home, or sometimes 5, the lights are always on. And I can see the power of the lights on the ceiling as I go past. And all I can imagine are a load of dead bodies. Yeah, a load of dead bodies below being embalmed.
Oh, how big is this place then?
Well, it's pretty big. It goes round a whole of one block, you know, and there's a chapel of rest, and then there's a place.
So have they got an incinerator there as well then? I mean, I don't think they've
got an incinerator.
They don't do cremations.
No, they don't do cremations. But what I'm saying is, you see ambulances lined up there, you see the old private ambulances, but the worst thing are all the hearses parked on the... Honestly, I can't bear it.
See what he's doing here, by the way.
Well, I'm going to be in the back of one of those one day, and I don't want to be. Not just yet, you know what I mean?
Well, the weirdest thing, actually, was when you and I were having a conversation about this in the middle of the week, just apropos, because so that people know, we do actually have the odd conversation off the radio.
Yes.
Even though it appears we don't like each other at all. And just after you told me this story about your fear of this mortuary,
the hearses,
I drove out to pick up my kids from school.
Yeah.
And I turned into a road in this little village, and sure enough, right in front of me was a hearse with a coffin in it.
Oh,
it's amazing.
That'd have made me shiver.
And it actually made me shiver.
Yeah.
Because I thought that is really weird.
Really
weird.
what
else was weird when I was driving this week?
What?
I was driving up to London last weekend to do a show, and I just completely at random looked down at the dashboard as I was coming up the A21, and do you know what the mileage said?
No.
33,333.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It's a good job it didn't say 666.
Yeah, what would happen then?
Well, that's the devil's code, isn't it? So, no, yes, you'd have the
devil's code?
Yeah,
so what happens when that happens in your car then?
You've got the devil on board, haven't you? You've got to watch that, man, I'm telling you.
You do.
Who would be a hearse driver, by the way? What a terrible job to be driving around with a dead body on your shoulder all the time.
Well, I don't think they're on the shoulder, in a box in the
close,
back.
Yeah, but they're close. Oh, I just don't know how anybody does that. I just don't know how anybody can, be a, you know...
Well, it's better than driving a bus, let's face it.
Oh, is it? We have
Yeah.
to go very slowly.
You have to deal with the public. Anyway, we better get off this subject. I can't stop laughing, and it's not very funny at all. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mr. Parry's looking a little bit agitated. What's the matter?
The tin's gone with McKeon.
What do you mean his tin's gone?
It's gone. Somebody's nicked my tin. Where's it gone? Got my car key in. How am I
I
going to
thought
get
it was
home?
foolproof, this system of yours.
Well, unless there's, a tea leaf around the studio somewhere, my
Well, it
car
just-
might have disappeared at this very
Well, it
moment.
just shows you that it's not a very good system. So somebody's now walked out with your keys. They went inside the tin.
Unless I don't know.
Maybe you took them outside with you. When
No,
you
I
went out.
didn't. No, I didn't.
Are you sure? You're not in your pocket.
Somebody's either having a laugh or somebody's nicked my car. I'm going to find out in the next break.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I've got them right here.
Oh, right, there you go, you see. Trying to wind me up, huh?
No, I just thought I'd remove them to show you how easy it is to remove your tin.
Yeah.
So it's not such a foolproof method of security
Well,
after all.
believe it or not, Mike, when I'm doing a radio show on air for 3 hours, I tend to think I can trust the person who's there, who's not going to nick my keys, nick my car. What a disgusting individual you are.
It just shows
Despicable
you what a
human
stupid
being.
idea it is. Anyway, that's enough of the shaking, the rattling of the tin. People will start throwing money at you soon. Now, there's an interesting development going on in the musical world with Led Zeppelin. We talked about all of that.
Yeah.
But you were telling me a little bit earlier that you've got some news on you've discovered, you claim, the first ever football chant.
I certainly have, and by the way, this is fantastic because I think my favourite song is "Abide with Me" because it's the cup final song.
Yes.
Okay, abide with me.
Did you like the
fast for the evening tide?
Well, we don't need you to sing it, but I mean, did you like Leona Lewis's version of it on Saturday? Last
Yeah, it was okay. It was okay, but
I thought it was great,
The original's good. But anyway, look. After that, I would say that probably my favourite hymn is "Land of Hope and Glory." Now that's because for a number of
Is it a
reasons.
hymn? I suppose it's a hymn. Isn't
Yeah, it's well, whatever. It's a beautiful song. Now the point is that I liked it for many reasons, but one of them is my father told me that when he set out on the D-Day invasion from the south coast between Southampton and Portsmouth, a place called Lee on the Solent. And that's in the Solent, obviously, this side of the Isle of Wight.
It's on the Solent, isn't it?
It's on the Solent, yeah. And as they were on deck and before they set sail, in the middle of the night, the captain addressed the crew over the tannoy, and then they played "Land of Hope and Glory" as opposed to the national anthem as they set off to liberate Europe. And so I've always remembered about that. But anyway, that
Written
was
by Edward Elgar.
Edward Elgar, right. But Edward Elgar, apart from being a musical genius and writing songs, was also a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan.
Was he?
He lived in Malvern, which is in Worcestershire.
Where the water comes from.
Yeah, that's right. Malvern Hills and all that. You're absolutely right. And if you go down the A41, you go into Wolverhampton, and he used to go down there on his bike. It's quite a long ride. It's about 20 miles. And he'd go and watch the Wolves. So he wrote the first ever...
Was this at Molineux?
It was at Molineux. It was at Molineux.
That's how old Molineux is then.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Well, the football...
Wolves are one of the oldest teams in the Football League, aren't they?
Yeah, they're one of the original members, I think, of the Football League. 1863, the rule book was written. Yeah. By 1898, it was well developed. You were 30 years on, and I think Preston had already won the first double in 1891, 92. But anyway, the point of the story is he wrote the first football chant, and it was called "He Banged the Leather for Goal."
Really?
He banged the leather for goal. He banged the leather for goal. He banged the leather for goal. And all these.
It sounds like something out of Blackadder.
All these.
Are you sure that this was done in a Wolverhampton accent?
Definitely. So I'm going to do it for you now in a Dudley accent because Dudley is the black country, you know.
Right.
He banged the leather for goal.
Would you like some musical accompaniment for that?
Well, if you give me the karaoke version of "Land of Hope and Glory," I have written words for it that are a football song.
Okay, then let's have
let's
see if I can do that. Wait till you come in, though. Come in at the right moment.
Okay.
Here we go.
Mighty Molineux, Wolverhampton Wanderers, mighty and mighty of football, we will always love you. Old gold is our colour, victory is our aim. Wolverhampton Wanderers, giants of the game. Wolverhampton phantom wanderers, giants of the game.
Very good. Now, can we go back to Stairway to Heaven now? I thought you were going to include his own words, Elgar's words.
Well, there's only the words I've given you. He banged the leather for gold.
Well, why didn't you put those in the bit you sung?
Well, because I don't know what the tune he put it to. I mean, I was just using his most famous...
Well, I thought you might have used,
no.
At least that line.
No.
Well, I think we can say without a shadow of a doubt, very, very well attempted, but it has to be said that your voice really does leave a little to be desired.
Well, I didn't get in the right key, did I? Because I didn't have enough introduction. You know, before I sung, like, in a professional capacity or something like that, excuse me, I have to exercise the old voice. Yeah. And I didn't have it exercised properly. And also, I don't like the atmosphere in this studio because it's too dry because of the air conditioning. I don't like the stereophonics, and I don't like the acoustics.
Is there anything you do like?
Well, you've got to get these all these factors right.
Fortunately, you like me, so that's
all
right.
No, you put me off as well. I nearly choked on what I was singing. Look at your
Well, I don't think you'd be getting really marks out of 10. If you're going to do this Eurovision Song Contest attempt, I think you better start getting some voice lessons.
Now,
let's talk about something else that is close to our hearts, and that's driving around in this country, because you were also attracted to a story by the rock star J.K., who's a man who loves very, very fast cars, right?
Amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
He says that the problem with motorways in this country is that they're too slow.
Well, I think he's absolutely right, don't you? I think he's absolutely right.
Well, we talked about this before, because there was a story, a year or two ago, saying that they were going to put the speed limit from 70 up to 80.
That's right.
It now turns out that they've got a plan to reduce it to 60, so I don't really know what they're doing.
Unbelievable. Now, old J.K., what group was he in?
Jamiroquai.
Jamiroquai. And what did they sort of sing? I mean, any famous songs that I know of?
You probably wouldn't recognise many of them.
No?
They were quite sort of individualistic sound. I mean, if you heard it, you would know it.
Were they a bit like sort of Oasis?
No, not really.
Right, what were they like then?
Oh, well, it was more kind of dance music than rock music.
Dance music, yeah, I'm not into dancing really, but anyway, there you go. Anyway, the point is, he's got a collection of classic cars. Looks like a good guy, this guy, J.K., and he says, make the speed limit 80.
He used to go out with Denise Van Outen, I think, didn't he?
Denise Van Outen, that's right, yeah, he did, yeah. Now, what I was going to say was, I have done a scientific investigation into the 80-mile-an-hour thing, because I've been banging on about it for years, and in fact, I will quite happily sit here now and admit that I break the law on a daily basis when I'm in my car, because I go at least 80 miles an hour, and the reason I go...
Well, presumably just on the motorway, not
on the motorway, yeah, not on urban streets and all that. But I mean, the speeding restrictions in this country are ludicrous. If I go from here to Portsmouth after we finish the show tonight, I'll be leaving here at 5 o'clock, OK? Yeah. Why should I have to restrict myself to 70 miles an hour on an empty motorway all the way down to the south coast, when, in fact, if I went at 90 miles an hour, I'd get there quicker, I'd burn less fuel, and
Well, how would you burn less fuel?
Well, because you get there quicker, so you're not...
No, you burn more fuel the faster you go.
Rubbish.
That's
an absolute myth.
It's not a myth.
It's an absolute myth, man, I'm telling you, it's an absolute myth.
We should get our tanker driver back on, because I'm sure he would tell you that...
I'm telling you,
the faster you go, the more fuel is injected into the engine.
Rubbish.
Therefore, the more fuel you use.
That's utter rubbish.
It's not.
The faster you go, the faster you get there. Therefore, your engine is not running for as long, and therefore you don't use as much fuel.
Well, funnily enough, you can make an equation about that.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, for the purposes of, say, the difference between 90 and 70, you will use far more fuel getting there.
No, rubbish.
You will.
No, I've worked it out. Now, the other thing is, I've done a scientific study. If we put the speed on motorways, the speed limit on motorways, up from 70 to 80 in this country, the economy would improve by 1.5% a year.
How so?
Just by doing that. Because people would get to where they're going more quickly. Therefore, you'd spend more time in productive capacity work and less time sitting in cars, dawdling around, doing nothing, right, crawling around the M25 at 25 miles an hour, which drives everybody mad.
But isn't the danger of doing that if you put the speed limit up to 80, people will start doing 90 and 100, whereas now they do 80 and 90?
I don't see anything wrong with that with modern cars. I mean, my car is so efficient that it can brake on a sixpence, It can get itself...
a champagne bottle.
It can get itself out of trouble by you putting your foot down and whoosh, you burn off and you're away and all that.
And you use a lot of fuel doing it.
And of course you use a lot of fuel, but you get there quicker. And the point is, I think it's ludicrous. I've been on that road down to... Now, the road down to the south coast is the A3, but towards the end of it becomes the A3M.
Yeah.
And do you know what they do? The cops down there always have one of these mobile camera things positioned on the A3M, because I know as people move from the A3 to the M3, they get the feeling of, more lanes, more space. It looks like...
But the A360, or is it 70?
It's 70.
Yeah. So technically you're not supposed to accelerate when you get to the A3M.
No, of course you're not. But I always think, this is great. 10 miles of this down onto the M27. And then on the M27, I always put my foot down. And quite frankly, if the road's empty, I just cannot see why I'm doing anything wrong. I've got a car which is perfectly engineered. It's not going to leave the road. The tyres aren't going to burst. It means that the road...
Well, you have had some trouble with your tyres, mind you.
Well, I don't know what that was all about. That's all sorted now. But what I'm saying is I leave more road space available to the car behind me if I move more quickly over the tarmac surface, and that's what it's all about.
Well, I suppose you
and
could
it's
make the
ludicrous,
argument.
ludicrous.
You go to Germany, and in Germany, of course, they used to have no speed limit at all on the Autobahn.
It was great. They still haven't, have they?
No, but they then used to have some horrendous car crashes because, they would be... I mean, I've driven in Germany in the fog, and I was somewhere near Heidelberg, and some guy was overtaking me in the fog.
Heidelberg.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think you've done enough singing for the night.
Yeah.
Edelweiss, that is, by the way.
I know,
Heidelberg.
I know.
It's 140 miles an hour this guy was doing. 140 miles an hour. I can tell you why I know he was doing that, because I was doing about 100. And he flew past me.
I did 140 miles an hour on the M27 on Christmas Day.
Did you?
In my Jag, yeah. And
you see, that is twice the speed limit.
I didn't know I was doing it because, you see, the cars are so well engineered these days and there was no other traffic on the road. And most of the time, you can only gauge how fast you're going by comparing the movement of your car to the movement of another car.
But the reason, of course, that they say, and I take your point, if there's nothing on the road, then maybe there should be some kind of lessening of the speed limit. But the problem is, in this country, as there are in many other countries, a lot of really idiotic drivers who don't know how to drive.
Yeah, but if the road's empty, there's no other idiotic driver to cause you a problem.
But they can't tell you the road's empty on a regular basis. I mean, the M27, for example, is not an empty road during the day, and neither is the M3.
No, but it is at night, so why can't you... They should lift all speed restrictions after 10 o'clock at night, or 9 o'clock at night. Of course they should.
I mean, there are plenty of truck drivers driving around right now. I'd love to hear from some of them, actually, as to what you would think about increasing the speed limit. 08717 22 3344. It's a good debate to have. I'm just worried that if you make the speed limit too high, that people will just take advantage and be stupid.
Honestly, I'd love to hear from some of our lorry driver listeners, because what I'm saying is your restriction is probably, by nature of the vehicles they're driving, between 70 and 80 miles an hour. If you're driving a 40-ton lorry, you shouldn't be going faster than that anyway. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, wouldn't it be easier to make the roads more available if other cars were getting off them more quickly by going faster? That's all I'm saying. There wouldn't be so much congestion and all that.
In theory, you have a point, but I think in practice it wouldn't work. But let's hear from some of the other people out there.
Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. If I made you feel second best.
You know who this is?
Sorry, why are we playing this? I didn't realise we turned into a music show.
No, we are. We're on a music show.
No, we've done Stairway to Heaven and now...
Well, because we're doing a quiz now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, OK. What's this got to do with Lord Nelson?
Well, do you know who's singing?
Willie Nelson.
Yeah, get it?
Oh, I see, yeah, it's Willie Nelson. Yeah, right, OK. And what's the connection?
We haven't got anything by
What's the
Horatio
connection
Nelson.
between...
Well, his name's Nelson.
A scruffy, brain-addled, long-haired, freak-like looking country and western singer from America... and the world's most distinguished ever sailor and naval chief.
Well, they've got the same name. That's the connection.
Yeah, that's about it, man. That's the only comparison.
That's quite a good connection.
I mean, for you to compare, Willie Nelson, there's a windscreen wiper gonna make it bright and all that, with Lord Admiral Horatio Lord Admiral Nelson. It was one of Willie Nelson's.
Wiper song?
It was one of Willie Nelson's. Yeah,
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, that last one was "You Were Always on My Mind,"
and that, by the way, was a song made famous by Elvis. Anyway, so he nicked it from somebody else. You wouldn't find Lord Nelson nicking anybody's ideas from anybody. He just took them on broadside.
Yeah, OK. Well, we're going to have a little bit of music before we start the quiz. The last quiz that we did was the Beatles quiz. You declared last week that you were a Beatles expert.
Yep.
I gave you 5 questions, all of which were more or less musical questions, selected at random by the boys behind the glass.
Yes.
And you didn't get one right, OK?
That's not true.
So now, because you begged me, I said, all right, well, to show that you do know something about something, I said, what would be your pet subject then if we were to give you a quiz to give you a chance to show that you are actually knowledgeable? And you said Lord Nelson.
I didn't say that at all, by the way.
So now, Horatio Nelson is going to be the subject of tonight's quiz.
All right, well, I'll take it on, but the idea that I came and volunteered to you or begged you to give another quiz is nonsense. You've just picked a subject at random, of which I have a deep knowledge, I will admit, and I will go through the charade just to prove that there's only one numpty in the studio.
Yes, indeed. OK, well, let's start with the dramatic music, and we'll have question number one. At what age did Horatio Nelson join the Navy?
19.
It says he was 12 here.
That's rubbish.
Number two. At what age did Horatio Nelson become captain?
21.
Wrong on so many
It
levels.
says 20 here.
Aha, you see, but that was probably on his birthday.
Number four. Which ship was Horatio... It's number three, I should say. Which ship was Horatio Nelson's first command?
It depends what sort of ship you're talking about.
Well, his first command.
Well, it was on a different level in those days. The Navy had 350 ships.
Well, which one was his one he was first in charge of?
Well, were you talking about his training ship, or were you talking
I've
about
no
the first
idea.
one of which...
I'm just the quizmaster
Well,
here.
he was the master before HMS Victory, which of course was his flagship, of a ship called Columbus, of a ship called Daring, of a ship called Darwin, and of a ship called let me just remember. I think it was HMS Devon.
What?
I've just told you.
Yeah, well, it's not any of those. It's
Well-
Hinchingbroke.
Sorry?
Hinchingbrooke. Hinchingbrooke is the name.
Never heard of it. I'm sorry. A load of rubbish.
Number five. Which ship was put under Horatio...
This is number 4, by the way.
Oh, sorry, number four. Which ship
So
was
you can't
put...
even get the number of the questions
Which
right.
ship was put under Horatio Nelson's command in 1793?
Well, that's a ridiculous question, because as he was commander of the fleet, they were all under his command. It's like when President...
Well, presumably not in 1793.
It's like when President Lyndon Baines Johnson, was leaving the White House on one occasion through the Rose Garden. There were a load of helicopters at the back taking various dignitaries anywhere, and the Marine guy said, Mr. President, that's your helicopter over there. And he said, no, it's not, son, they're all my helicopters. Just remember that.
Yeah. Well, I presume he wasn't in command of the entire British Navy in 1793, otherwise I wouldn't have this question for you.
Well, you don't know what you're doing. The battle...
I'm just reading out the questions.
The battle was in 1805, wasn't it? So, you know,
Well,
you'd
this
have
is
to be...
1793.
Yeah, well, that was only 12 years away. It's a ludicrous question. There's so many ships involved in Nelson's
You don't
life.
know, do you?
It's not that I don't know. It's just I'm
going to have to hurry you.
It's too inaccurate a question for me to be able to answer properly.
Right,
I'm sorry, it's not a real
the
question.
The answer is Agamemnon.
Was what? Sorry?
Agamemnon.
Oh, rubbish. What a load of rubbish.
All right, number five. What happened to Horatio Nelson during the Battle of Calvi?
He lost his eye.
Oh, brilliant! This is drama in the extreme.
That's 1 out of 6. Good man. During which battle did Horatio Nelson lose his right arm?
Egypt.
Wrong.
Rubbish.
Wrong on so many
Battle of
levels.
Santa Cruz de Tenerife.
Yeah, well, that's right. I was on the way to Egypt.
On the way to
Yeah,
Egypt?
it was, yeah.
Well, it's not in
Seriously.
Egypt, is it?
Seriously.
That's wrong. Number 7. With what words did Horatio...
Sorry, I thought this was a 5
No, I
question
told you it was
quiz.
10.
Oh, okay.
I told you it was 10 at the
Right.
beginning. You don't
Go on.
listen to a word I say, do you?
Go on.
I'm giving you a chance because you got none out of 5. I thought if I give you 10, there's a chance you'll get one right.
That's a rubbish.
So
Go
far,
on.
my theory is entirely correct. With what words did Horatio Nelson inspire his men before the Battle of Trafalgar? Oh, well, everybody knows this one.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the exact wording. England today commands that every man do his duty.
That'll do. I'll give you that
See, it's easy for a scholar like me.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was Horatio Nelson identified by the person who shot him? I.e., how did they know who he was?
Well, A, he was walking on the foredeck in the middle of a battle,
Yeah.
and B, he had the distinctive uniform on of the
Correct.
Admiral of the Fleet.
Oh,
Correct.
brilliant! This is drama in the extreme.
And number 9. Which number is associated with Horatio Nelson?
Which number?
Yeah, I don't know why this is associated
The
with
number associated with Horatio Nelson is 8. 8.
8. Why?
8. Well, you didn't ask me why. You asked
Yeah,
me
I
what
know, well, I
number.
was just wondering why you came up with 8 because it's so far wrong from the real answer.
And what do you suggest the real answer
The
is?
real answer is 111.
111. What does that mean?
Well, it stands for one arm, one eye, one leg.
What a load of rubbish. He had 2 legs.
Well, maybe 2 of the legs and 2 of the ones. I don't know, but that's why it's 111.
Nonsense. That's a joke question. I'm not having that.
Well, you got that one wrong as well. Final question: who did Horatio Nelson marry?
Lady Hamilton.
That was his mistress, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He didn't marry her.
No, he
She
married
was his mistress.
he married the vicar's daughter from Norfolk.
What was her name?
Well, I don't know. whatever Vicar's daughter's in Norfolk called.
Francis
Daphne?
Nisbet.
Francis Nisbet, yeah.
All right,
I knew
so
something like that.
let me just tot up the number you've got correct here.
I think it'll find it's 5.
You've got the last one wrong. 1, 2, 3. 3 out of 10.
No, I don't think that's...
I think that is pretty
Yeah, they're
appalling.
always pretty loaded, these. You and the boys behind the glass conspire to try and make me look foolish. Hmm?
The reason that the number question is correct is because it's actually a cricket term. 1-1-1. One eye, one arm, one leg.
He had 2 legs, didn't he?
Well, it's got nothing to do with how many legs he had.
Well, it's just ridiculous, preposterous to
Well,
say...
considering that this is your
We called him
favourite...
1-1-1. Well, yeah, but I'm saying it's completely inaccurate. He had 2 legs, right?
Well, I don't know why it's been put on this quiz question.
You know, with his one eye, by the way, that was where the expression, turn a blind eye came from, because when he was issued an instruction to disengage from battle at the Battle of Egypt, he said, I will seek out the enemy, and he put the telescope to his blind eye. And
pretended he couldn't see them.
Exactly, and said there's no reason to disengage. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, 3 out of 10. It's better than none out of 5, I suppose. So you're getting closer to halfway, 50%.
When he was,
you wouldn't be passing any major
congratulations, pal! You got the right answer. But you're still a numpty.
When he was killed at the Battle of Trafalgar, of course, and the deck, kiss me hardy and all that. They then
Isn't there some doubt that he said kiss me hardy?
No.
Did he not say kismet?
It was Kismet hardy.
Kismet.
Well, it could have been kiss me. We don't know, do we? Because we weren't there. But the point of the story is they then put his body into a vat of apple juice, because that's the only preservative they had, and brought him home, because you've got to remember, it took a long time to get home in those days, and from battle and all that. And it was in
Took
his
a long
cask.
time to get out there as well.
Yeah, it did, yeah. And then they landed at the Royal Naval College in Greenwich, and he lay in state in the Painted Hall. Have you ever been to the Painted Hall at the Royal Naval College? It is utterly fantastic. It's actually, all the ceilings are painted Michelangelo style, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I have.
Yeah, and it's...
Was he not preserved
fantastic.
in brandy or something as well?
Yeah, that's what I said, apple. It was like, that Portuguese brandy, what's it called? Calvados.
Calvados?
Yeah.
I don't think that's Portuguese.
Well, it is, I
I
think.
think it's French, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, it's Portuguese, definitely.
sure?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, well,
Certainly.
we'll check that. I'm sure whenever you say definitely, it's almost definitely not correct.
I think it's right.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. We're going to take some calls coming up. Let me read you a couple of social media messages that I've got coming in. I'm in tears through Porky Parry tonight, says Whitty. I can't wait to get that Wolves song started on the South Bank next season.
I think it's good, don't you?
And here's one from Georgie in Wallasey, who says, Mike, Porky just declared he drove down the M27 and was unaware that he was travelling at 127 miles per hour. I would call that driving without due care and attention, normally the deeds of a boy racer or someone of that ilk.
I didn't crash into anybody.
That doesn't matter. And then here's one from Simon the Goon in East London. Mike, has Porky found the M63 yet?
Yeah. Now, people keep telling me that, but in fact, we did establish there was an M63. It's just that somebody changed the number to M60.
Yeah, it doesn't
so
exist.
I'm not taking any more stick on that.
Exist.
Sorry,
Well,
you lot are wrong. There was an M63. It's not my fault that they changed it a few years back, and it's now called the M60.
There was a Second World War. There isn't one going on anymore.
It goes around the city of Manchester. In the days when I was using it, when it first opened, it was the M63, and I had my Vauxhall Viva.
Can I also tell you that Calvados is indeed from southwest France?
Well, that's near Portugal.
Well, you better not try and go and watch the Champions League final on Saturday night, is all I can say. This is TalkSport Extra Time. Loads more to come with the two mics.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people living as hoes. Yeah, but maybe it's not too late to learn how to love.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Gray. Mike Porky Parry is here with me. We are the two mics, of course. A couple of texters have come in with some information. This one's coming on social media, actually, at TalkSport, about people that went back. Here's one from Ricky Boy, who says Stephen Pienaar went back to Everton after a poor season at Spurs. Also, Robbie Keane went back to Spurs from Liverpool. So, I mean, I suppose you'd say Stephen Pienaar was not such a disaster when he went back.
Well, no, but it wasn't such a high-profile transfer, was it? It was relatively low-key, and Everton sold him in a transfer window, and they kind of needed the money, I think, and Spurs were hoping to improve their team. But it didn't work out for Stephen. A great player, came back to Everton, he was good again. But generally speaking, the going back bit's an admission that, it didn't work out, and there's a sense of, like, what's the word I'm looking for? disappointment about it, isn't there?
There is, I suppose.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see that list of the in the Times this week of the 30 richest sports players?
Yeah.
And there was a surprising one in here actually when I was looking through it, and it was where is it? Yara Toure. Yara Toure is obviously in there as well, but Joe Cole. Who we spoke to, or you spoke to earlier last week, and Robbie Keane as well. Robbie Keane's in there at 80 million. And he's worth more than Robin van Persie, which I thought was surprising.
Well, he's had so many transfers, hasn't he? And every time you get transferred. In fact, I was doing the show the other morning with Ray Parlar.
Yes.
And Ray pointed out that the one name in there, which he's amazed is not in there, is Nicholas Anelka. Because Nicholas Anelka's had a load of massively expensive, high-profile transfers, all of which, percentage-wise, you get a cut. And Joe Cole...
I can only assume, and because I listened to that and I heard that, and I presume it's because he's no longer based here, which I think is what you said.
I think it is. Yeah,
because I think you have to be based here. By the way, Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button, the two wealthiest British-based sportsmen. I mean, have you ever been to the Monte Carlo, the Monaco Grand Prix?
Funny enough, I went to Monaco and we did a series of shows there, Al and I, in the week of the Monaco Grand Prix because Chelsea were there playing Monaco in the semi-final of the Champions League. Yeah. The one that he lost, Ranieri, when he was accused of... That's when he first was the Tinkerman, you know what I mean? He changed the team round so dramatically, they just couldn't play with each other. But I didn't stay for the... Al stayed on, I think, for the race. I didn't. I came home on the Saturday because it was such madness, you know what I mean? And I just...
Well, you've got to be into that, really.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit like the Cannes Film Festival. Yeah. I mean, John Hearn was down at the Cannes Film Festival earlier this week. And, you know, there's only so many days of it you can take, actually.
Yeah, sure.
After a while, all that champagne and beautiful women. I mean, I'm not joking. Yeah. It's actually boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk to John, who's a Man United fan, who's down in Sydney. Because we were talking earlier on the show about how this is a big money weekend, £134 million to the winner of the QPR Derby game. I know you're questioning that figure, but it's an awful lot of money. The Champions League final as well. John wants to talk about how much it costs to get to a game. John, very good morning to you. Welcome.
It's good afternoon for me, but there you go.
Yeah, well, I can't get everything right, John. You know, I mean, as Mike Parry says, everybody else is asleep. I thought you'd be asleep in Sydney at this time of the day.
No, not at all.
No, it's lunchtime, mate. It's lunchtime.
Okay, excellent.
What would you like to tell us?
I'd just like to discuss what you were talking about earlier about the cost involved of attending like a full season of football.
Yeah,
that's right.
As a United fan, I was going... Before I left England, I would go every week home and away. I think the last full season I did was 2008 when we got to the Champions League final. Yeah. And all in all, I spent £10,000 that year.
£10,000? What, in terms, including sort of the travelling expenses and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, just going to Moscow alone for flights and accommodation for 2 nights with your flights was £1,000 just for that. Yeah. Your season ticket's another £800. Going to an away game as a United fan, the tickets are such high demand. If you want a big game, Liverpool, you have to get them off touts. So if you want a big game, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, £200 a ticket from a tout.
Yeah, it is massively overpriced in this country.
And how many games in that season would you have paid that kind of money?
I went only the big four, but then you've got your kind of next tier, your Newcastle, your Spurs. Right. They're wanting about £80 for that, and then the touts are charging for your like Fulham's and it's kind of like Sunderland's. They're wanting like £60.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
And were you going on your own, John, or were you taking your lad with you, or what?
No, I was going with a pub, so there'd be a group of lads every week, and we'd all go together, so we'd be able to get tickets from touts, and we'd all get the minibus. I'd travel on the minibus up and down the country every week, you know.
Well,
you've got the cost of that, you know. The minibus is £20 to London and back each, you know.
Yeah.
But that's relatively cheap, because if you'd been going on the train, it would have been even more expensive, wouldn't it?
Well, the train from for me from London to Liverpool and back in the same day is £105, and that's if you buy it in advance. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's expensive. But
you go first class.
Yeah, well, of course I'd go first class. I mean, you know,
John sounds like a man of the people, doesn't want to go first class.
I'm sure John is a man of the. Sure, John is a man of the people. John, it sounds to me like you had a very empty life in this country. If you could spend that much time following Manchester United around, is that what?
To be honest, is that why you? I broke up with one of my partners, one of my ex-girlfriends. We broke up about it because I was using all my holidays from work to go to European away games.
Right.
I was every Saturday she'd want to go shopping, and I'm like, well, it's United, so that's it.
Yeah, and is that why you emigrated? Is that why you emigrated in the end, to get over the misery of the breakup?
Yeah. That was a contributing factor, actually. I did have a bit of a bad time afterwards. But
really? That's terribly sad.
Yeah.
Would you mind letting him answer the question?
Yeah.
So did you move? Because I didn't hear that, John. Sorry, because Porky's incapable of letting somebody. He asks you a question, but he doesn't actually want you to answer it. I do want you to answer it. So
I did have a bit of time. I had a bit of a bad time after we broke up. Plus, I think going out on the drink with the lads every weekend, that's not going to help you.
Well, having a drinking problem when your relationship's broken up, John, is very dangerous.
Well, it wasn't a problem. It was just a week, Saturday out all day kind of thing.
Hang on, John.
That's pretty good coming from you, Porky. By the way.
Hang on. Excuse me, John. I'll just put those two sentences in isolation. I didn't have much of a drinking problem, but I went out drinking all day Saturday. I mean, how much did you have to drink on a Saturday?
What's wrong with that?
It depends if it was a home game or an away game. If it's an away game, you're going to London, you're getting on the minibus at like 6 in the morning, you'll start on the cans, you'll be there by 2 in the afternoon, and then you'll be drinking in London, having a drink in a pub, then you'll go to the game, and then you'll drink all the way back, and then it's time for bed after that.
Could you see anything by the time you got into the ground if you'd started drinking at 6 in the morning?
I've been to that many football games that I can't remember what happened.
I'll tell you what, John, if you'd been here this season, you'd have been drinking a lot more than that when Manchester United were playing.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to talk to you about what you were talking about yesterday about actually emigrating overseas.
Yeah, tell us.
Any European under the age of 31 with a clean criminal record can come to Australia and get a 2-year visa to work here without any problem or hassle.
Really?
So a lot of people think it's very difficult to stay in the country, but to actually you can come here for 2 years and work and have a good life.
So is that what you're doing now then?
Well, I've been here 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
I got my visa through to stay last week.
Oh, congratulations!
I've got an Australian girlfriend, so she helped me to stay in the country. But if you've got a trade, if you're a brickie, sparky, plumber, you can easily migrate to anywhere, Australia, Canada. It's very, very easy.
What's your job, John?
I'm a truck driver, actually.
Truck driver, okay, excellent, good. Now, the point is, that relationship in Australia might last because you won't be going out on the lash all day Saturday every week and getting, bevied up watching Manchester United, yeah? Or
the problem is the games are on at 2-3 in the morning here. So.
That's what I'm saying. So you presumably start drinking about 6 o'clock in the evening before. Yeah, and then go right way through, watch the game.
I don't know why you're making fun of him. Hang on. It sounds like your life.
No, all I'm saying is, John, that have you sought help for these 12-hour drink benders that surround football matches for you?
Well, there's a huge drinking culture in Australia. I think they're just as bad as the English people, really, in terms of drinking.
Yeah.
But I never let my drinking spill into the week because obviously I've got to drive a truck. I have to be capable to do that. So
exactly. Yeah.
I just go out on a weekend and have. Yeah, I'm a bit older as well. I'm
wiser.
I'm in my mid-30s now. Yeah, I
John,
think so.
By the way, last time I was in Australia, I stayed at the Hyatt on the Rocks in Sydney, right?
Oh, that's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place, and you can see the Sydney Opera House.
Who was paying for that?
It doesn't matter who's paying for it.
You obviously weren't.
See the Sydney Opera House from your bedroom window, and the electric curtains open in the morning to allow the sun in and all that kind of stuff. And then I took a walk with my mates back up into town about a mile to a place called the Lord Nelson, an English pub.
Oh yeah. I was in there about 2 weeks ago.
Well, there you go.
Nelson.
There you go. You see,
my girlfriend's friend works in there, so yeah, I was in there.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
If we ever make it down there, we'll come and find you in that pub then, shall we?
Oh yeah,
you will. And just one last question, John. You say a truck driver in Australia. Now, I've also spent time in Western Australia, out towards Perth and all that, and I've seen some of these, like what they call land trains. You know, these huge lorries.
The road trains.
Yeah,
they're it's like 68. Well, they're 120 tons.
Unbelievable.
How long are they then?
Oh, they're very.
No. I drive an 8-ton truck, so yeah.
Right. Okay.
I have been in the outback and seen the big road train trucks. Yeah.
I know, massive.
Yeah, you don't want to be coming the other way when one of them's coming at you at 100 miles an hour.
You certainly don't. That's absolutely right. Anyway, listen, mate. Good luck with the drinking problem. Good luck. Good luck with the relationship. And I'm
going to ask him one more question. Are United going to make the top 4 next season, John?
That depends on how we spend. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With the current squad, if we don't make any world class additions, I'd got to say no.
Yeah,
I've got to say no.
Absolutely right. John, a Man United fan in Sydney. This is Talk Sport Extra Time. Mr. Parry is here for one more hour. And, of course, Alan Brazil is going to be here at 6 o'clock. And I think he's off to Monaco for the Grand Prix after that,
I think he's doing the morning show, and I think he's
Is your friend
off.
David Ginola going to be down there? That's his stomping ground, isn't it?
I think David will be down there. I think he will be, because of course he comes from Saint-Tropez.
He does, doesn't he? Well, somewhere quite near there we established.
Juan Lepin.
Juan Lepin.
Juan Lepin.
Yeah. Whatever.
Juan Lepin. Yeah,
now, let's talk about... I'll tell you what I must mention to you, actually, because I saw this amazing video yesterday, which I sent out on Facebook, funnily enough, of the Brazil underground system in Sao Paulo.
Oh, yeah.
Because apparently yesterday there was a coach strike, so you couldn't get around anywhere by coach, and there's not many public transportation options down in Sao Paulo, which, of course, is where the opening game is going to be on June the 12th. And it turns out that there was just this mad sort of scene of literally thousands of people trying to cram themselves up escalators. And it looks, I've never been to Brazil, you have. Yeah. It looks like a very kind of unruly place, the kind of place where people don't queue up, the kind of place where if there are, say, 100,000 people going to see a game of football, which is likely to be the case, it could be absolute chaos down there.
Well, I haven't been to Sao Paulo. I don't know why Sao Paulo's, the capital. Rio de Janeiro should be, shouldn't it? But I've been to Rio. And I stayed on a beachfront hotel there. And, I mean, we've been going out to nice restaurants in the evenings, eating fantastic steak that had come from Argentina.
Yeah,
and all
they're
that
big
kind
on the
of stuff.
steaks.
Yeah, big on the steaks and all that. But you never walked anywhere. You were told the bus will arrive in front of the hotel, we'll all get on there, and then we drive through the bits, of Rio de Janeiro, which are dodgy. The
favela and all that.
Well, you don't go through the favelas, you go past them, if you see what I mean. They're all built in, like, valleys and that kind of stuff. And then when you came out the restaurant, don't talk to anybody on the street, just get straight back on the bus, So it's got that sort of reputation. But then again,
if you're going to go to a place like that and you're not going to sort of suck in the local atmosphere, what's the point of it? You don't really want to just be ferried around from place to place, do you?
There's a lot of scaremongering goes on. We were all told before we went to South Africa, these gangs of like muggers and carjackers and all this could be, prominent at every red light. You don't stop at it, drive straight through. And then none of that happened at all because local people have got a huge responsibility to try and protect the reputation of their countries when they're putting on the world's biggest sporting tournament. And I'm pretty sure they will. I mean, there does seem to be an element of instability in Brazilian society, but I don't know, that always seems to go away when the tournament arrives, doesn't it? And I hope that'll be the case in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dr. Steve Peters is a man that we've talked about often.
Yeah.
He's the guy that helped the British cycling team, Team GB. He's helped Liverpool as well. Stephen Gerrard, he's out with the players down in Portugal at the moment, telling them all about supposedly how they're going to make sure they win a penalty shootout. But the front page of the Guardian Sport this morning says Rooney to consult psychiatrist in the hopes of curing World Cup blues because he wants to find his form in Brazil after having two kind of pretty miserable World Cup outings where he hasn't scored a goal in the World Cup yet, has he?
No, I went to Portugal and watched him open up his international career on the world stage, in the European Championships 2004. But 2006 in Germany was blighted by his injury immediately before the tournament. Right. 2010 was just dreadful because England were dreadful. Dreadful to the extent where he wouldn't even publish his book afterwards. Neither would John Terry, neither would some of the other footballers in the England team. But I watched him today in that press conference, and being a bit of a student of psychology, I looked at him and read the body language, and I say it's a different Rooney. I mean, his ears kept twitching as he was talking.
What does that mean then?
Well, almost like antennae, you know what I mean? Almost like he was picking up signals.
Like Mr. Spock?
I'm not being ridiculous, but I mean, he was, he seemed to have a sort of a bit of an aura about him. He's got piercing sort of green eyes, really.
I think he's got more confidence as a man, I think, since he had that hair transplant.
I looked at his hair transplant as well, and that is part of him. That's part of the, this is me, Wayne Rooney.
Because it looks normal now. It doesn't look like a hair transplant anymore. No. It looks like it's his normal hair, doesn't it?
That's right. And he was very confident in the sense that he actually laid out, this is where the body language comes in, his shoulders were pretty rounded and hunched because he was leaning forward, reaching out to the audience, which means he's not frightened to communicate with them, considering they're the people who are going to take his words out into the world.
If you lean back, you look a bit arrogant.
Absolutely. You lean back, you look arrogant, and sort of, why are you asking me these questions? He was very keen to get involved. I noticed that, by the way, he thrust himself forward. He looked his inquisitors in the eye, and then occasionally when he was asked something he wanted to think about, his eyes would dart from side to side. So he would look at one inquisitor and then another, to see what sort of reaction he was getting from them.
A technique that you've used over the years to try and work out when you're interviewing famous people how they're reacting to the question.
Absolutely.
And whether they're telling lies or not.
Absolutely, mate. You know I can read somebody's face like a book, you know what I mean? I read your face and I see quarter pounder, you know what I mean? That's obvious, you know?
Once again, many people yesterday were actually saying, well, it's true, actually, that Mike Parry's making all this up, because once again I posted a delicious-looking meal that I'd made.
Delicious? It looked to me like you'd find a few old fish, cut their heads off and thrown it into a stew.
No, it was sea bass paella, actually, with noodles.
Sea bass paella, give me a break.
You wouldn't know what to do with it.
Well, I wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't eat a sea bass paella.
Why not? It's very good for you.
What is paella?
Paella is a Spanish local dish, which is made in a variety of different ways. Well, if you want a straight version of paella, actually almost anything is in it. It's like a Spanish version of shepherd's pie. You can put whatever the old stuff is that's lying around into it, or you can make it with seafood, or you can make it with chicken.
Well, this thing you posted today looked like it had a load of lettuce around it.
No, it had some coriander leaves on it, on the top.
Coriander leaves.
It had sea bass.
Some coriander with our fish.
Bass. It had a red pepper, it had a green pepper, had some garlic.
I can't stand pepper or garlic.
It had some paprika in it.
Pepper's too hot. Garlic is, just gets to the back of my throat.
Pepper is a vegetable. It's not spicy at all.
Well, it's too hot for me.
It's not hot at all.
What? Pepper's not hot?
I'm talking about a pepper.
Oh, you're talking rubbish.
A green vegetable.
Anyway, listen, getting back to the Rooney thing, right? Getting back to the Rooney thing. He had a red top on with a white collar on it.
Wasn't he wearing this sort of specific official England garb?
Yeah, but it made him look very much like a sort of choir boy, if you see what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
He looked like a sort of, angelic, if you see what I mean.
Well, it looked like a dog collar type.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think that was part of the impression he gave as well. And I thought he came out very confident because he said, look, this time I've got to do it. He actually questioned whether he'd have another opportunity at the World Cup to do it. He'll only be 31 at the next World Cup,
And he did speak about his previous times at the World Cup.
Yeah, he did. And
without any kind of bitterness. He just was very matter-of-fact about it, wasn't he?
I have been here before. This was his best line of the day.
Yeah.
And what he meant was, I've sat in front of you guys before, and I've said what I feel that I can deliver, but it's not happened. He was ruthlessly honest with himself. So this is a new Rooney, and that's why I'm predicting that he and Ross Barkley will be the England stars of the tournament.
Yeah.
Of that, I'm certain.
Well, it's an interesting thing. There's a picture of him playing golf on the back down at the Algarve yesterday. I don't know if you've ever played golf down there at Val de Lobo, which is a lovely part of the world.
It is.
It's a very difficult golf course as well. But it says Roux under par, and it's from Paul Scholes. And Paul Scholes is basically saying in the Mirror, he's challenging Roy Hodgson to have the balls to drop Wayne Rooney from his World Cup team if his former teammate is not playing well enough.
Yeah, well, I you've got to applaud Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes has started speaking out in a way he never did as a player. He attacked Jack Wilshere. Well, I don't think he attacked him, but he was very controversial.
He said basically that he didn't think he'd sort of advanced his career or his skill since he was 17. I think he had a point. And even Jack Wilshere agreed with it.
Yeah, he did. He rang him up and said, look, I was quite hurt by those comments, but what did you mean? And then he took advice from him on how to improve his game. And he has said that, and he said that, basically Wayne Rooney owes the country one for what they're doing. And you just made a reference, he's earning £300,000 a week. Well, England don't pay him that. England don't pay him that. Manchester United pay him that.
No, I know that.
So what I'm saying is...
for a player who's paid that kind of money, he shouldn't be somebody that we're waiting to see explode on the World Cup scene. He must be one of the highest paid players in the world. He should be performing like one of the highest paid players in the world at the World Cup.
I totally agree with you. It doesn't always work out like that, does it? Interesting what Paul Scholes said, that he should never be played up in a double partnership. He should be played up front on his own. So that might give you some hint as to where Rooney thinks he's going to be most useful to England. He might have had a word with Paul Scholes, you know what I mean? So this is the way we're going to do it.
Well,
Who knows? Who knows?
They gave out the squad numbers yesterday as well, didn't they? So
yes.
Some people are drawing some conclusions from that. But let me read you a couple of quick messages, because I always like to correct things that you've made as a mistake.
Oh, not all this again.
John in Slough has texted into 81089. He says, "Hi, Mike and Porky. Brasilia is the capital of Brazil, not Sao Paulo."
No, it's
not.
not.
The good work.
It's not. It's rubbish.
It is. Brasilia is.
Brasilia is a made-up city. Sao Paulo's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
it's rubbish. It's a new capital. It's not the old capital.
Well, it's the capital. Is there anything that you get wrong that you won't admit that you've got wrong?
It's like, that is like saying that...
that London's the capital of Great Britain.
No, it's like saying Mumbai is the capital of India.
What?
It's because they changed the name of it, didn't they?
No, they didn't.
They did.
Oh, stop it. Mike Parry has never made a mistake in his life. Thanks for keeping to correct him, because we keep him on the straight and narrow. Coming up next, we are going to speak to Dr. Sally Winston. is making you feel weird.
No.
You don't mind the funeral march?
It's a funeral march, isn't it? Well, I don't like funerals. I don't like looking at people nailed up in a box on a stand at the front of the church and all that. I just can't stand all that.
But that's not part of your phobia.
Well, I just think the whole process of dealing with the dead is so morbid, but I don't fear death at all. To me, death is an adventure I've yet to experience. I'm quite looking forward to seeing what happens, if you see what I mean. Yeah. I'm quite curious about it. But the actual process...
A lot of people are quite looking forward to it.
That's a bit harsh, Mike. That's a bit harsh. That's a bit harsh. But the actual process of dealing with the dead... how could anybody be an undertaker? How could anybody be a hearse driver? How could anybody be an embalmer? It just gets to me.
See, that's the thing that gives you the heebie-jeebies, isn't it? Well, luckily for you, we've got somebody here that might be able to help you. Dr. Sally Winston is a phobia and anxiety psychologist. She works for the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, and she's just written a book, which I believe is entitled What Every Therapist Needs to Know About Anxiety Disorders. And we're going to say hello. Dr. Winston, a very good morning to you.
Oh, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, it's good evening. Whereabouts in America are you, Sally? If I may call
I'm
you that.
near Baltimore.
Oh, near Baltimore. Okay, Maryland.
Baltimore,
very nice. Now, Mr. Parry here was telling us earlier on in the show that he has this kind of fairly, I suppose, irrational fear of not so much death, but actually of seeing hearses, of going. He goes past the funeral parlours. He sees them there at night. He sees ambulances pulling up and taking the dead out and putting them in there, and it sort of gives him a feeling generally of anxiety. Is that an unusual sort of phobia to have?
Actually, it isn't an unusual phobia. Although the most common phobias are not things like that. They're the things you hear more commonly, like spiders, small animals, snakes, storms, fear of public transportation, things like that.
Right.
But often when you have a phobia like this one, it's not actually a phobia. It's a fear of certain kinds of thoughts. And certain situations bring those thoughts on.
So it's kind of it's kind of a phony phobia, in other words.
Well, it's a phobia that's actually part of a different anxiety disorder.
Oh, now the reason we were talking about this, Doctor, was because we came across a story in this country, and you won't believe this: a woman who's got a terrible phobia of wardrobes. And the reason she has is when she was a child, she saw a film in which a wardrobe door opened and a zombie's hand came out and grabbed somebody by the throat and dragged them into the wardrobe. And ever since then, she's not been able to go into a house with a wardrobe. She has the wardrobes thrown out and replaced by sliding door closets and all this kind of stuff. Now, she can't even go into a store and look at the bedroom department because of the wardrobes. I mean, that's pretty disastrous, isn't it?
That's a very severe phobia, and it sounds like she was completely traumatized by that movie. And you can get associations like that can last a lifetime and be really quite crippling.
Yeah, I'm interested. Sorry, Dr.
We once treated someone who had a phobia of chocolate. And it was a similar sort of thing. She had been in a car accident and had been stuck in the car for hours waiting for rescue, hanging upside down, and on the seat next to her was a box of chocolate.
Golly.
And forever after that, she just sat and looked at the chocolate upside down while fearing for her life. Yeah. And at that point, her brain was forever changed by that fear experience.
It's fascinating, Dr. Winston. I'd like to sort of explore further what you said about Mr. Parry, my colleague here, because you said that you think that maybe his... not necessarily a fear of these things that give him the heebie-jeebies, but it's part of something else. What else could it be part of, do you think?
Well, there are a lot of phobias that are really reactions to thoughts that you're having. For example...
He doesn't have many of those.
Well,
it's very funny. Let's all have a laugh.
Well, when there's something that reminds you of something that scares you, then you can then start avoiding that. So that, for example, people who have obsessive-compulsive disorder, a lot of the things that they're afraid of, like germs, are not because of the germs themselves, but their fears of what the germs make them think of. Thoughts of getting sick, thoughts of hurting someone else.
You have
by
some of
getting
that, don't
sick.
you? You don't. You're quite worried about germs and things like that.
Well, I don't like germs, but I don't go down the Michael Jackson route of wearing tissue boxes on my feet or anything like that. You know.
No, but you're quite concerned about. I mean, you like to sort of wipe surfaces and things, and you are a bit kind of OCD about stuff like that.
Well, I think it's just looking after the sort of hygiene aspect of it. But Doctor, my phobia about things dead, dead people and funeral parlours and all that, that's because I think that we have far too drawn out an attitude towards death as humans. I think once a human's dead, there should be somewhere where you just sort of push them through a door and it's gone. I can't stand the ceremony of funerals and all that. It's all so morbid and morose and, all these. I think a hearse is the most horrible vehicle because, they're different to the ones you have in America, but they're horrible ancient vehicles carrying dead people around, and I don't want reminding of that.
You don't like the feeling that you get when you see that or when you even think about it.
No, I don't. And by the way, I'm not frightened of death. I think death is quite an adventure to look forward to, really, because you don't know what's going to happen next. But I just don't want to be carted around in a hearse. I'm going to try and, find another way of exiting the world.
Mm-hmm. Does this get in your way a great deal? Because when we talk about phobias being actually coming for treatment, usually they don't come for treatment until they actually get in someone's way. For example, somebody can be afraid of snakes, but they don't bother with treatment until their kids want to go camping,
Well,
so if it's actually in your way and causing a lot of distress, then that's something you could go for treatment for.
Well, for instance, there is a funeral parlour on the way home from where I'm talking to you now, these studios in London, and I go by a different route, and it's a longer route, to make sure I don't pass the funeral parlour because I can't bear the thought of there being dead bodies inside there.
I think she's not talking physically. You're not talking physically about avoiding it, though, are you? You're talking about avoiding it kind of in your mind.
Well, I think avoidances happen both ways. People avoid actually confronting what they're scared of, and they also try to avoid thinking about it. But one of the things that we know about trying to avoid thoughts is that when you really work hard on trying to not have a thought, you tend to have it more and more.
I see.
So these kinds of things spread.
So, Dr. Winston, I mean, I know this would be a ridiculous thing to ask you to do after such a little consultation with Mr. Parry, because he's a very complex character, I can tell you that.
Quite simple.
What can he do to banish these thoughts and these kind of negative attitudes towards the things that he's frightened of out of his mind?
Well, the kind of treatment that we would use for that would be called exposure-based treatment, which would involve gradually...
Stick him in a coffin.
Well, no, we certainly wouldn't start there, but you would start with small steps, maybe a conversation about death or pictures of things and not actually going towards the real things, and then perhaps spending a few minutes in the room with something that makes you think of death, maybe learning to talk about these things in a way that's kind of funny.
He's already looking quite uncomfortable when you suggest.
Well, I tell you what I was thinking, Doctor. I could go along to a funeral parlour and maybe ask the guy who owns it, look, do you mind if I just lie down in the back of a hearse while you drive round for a few minutes and see if I can get... What are you laughing at? What are you...
If you were actually willing to do that, it would be helpful.
Well, there you go.
Because what you would be saying is that you're willing to feel uncomfortable to get over it, and that's the key.
Well, yeah, but I mean, uncomfortable at first, but I wonder whether it would get rid of my anxieties. But I'm sorry, but my colleague here, Mike Graham, is...
I just can't imagine the idea that he goes to somebody and actually asks them if he can do that. I mean, normally you'd have the guys in the white coats coming around.
Well, no, not really.
Well, phobia therapists are pretty used to asking for very strange things so that we can get to help people.
Yeah, exactly.
So we will set up situations so that people can face their fears and get into the situations that they're scared of, usually a step at a time. You don't usually start with the scariest thing first. You go a step at a time.
I mean, that poor woman with her wardrobes, what they should do is they should literally just get hold of her.
In a wardrobe.
Yeah, lock her in a wardrobe. Bundle her into a wardrobe and lock the door.
In her case, I think because it was caused by a trauma in her childhood, there's different kind of work that you could do with that has to do with working with her memories of that original movie. And then you could do that work before you actually start to confront real wardrobes.
Right. Well, Dr. Winston, you've been most helpful. Did I get the name of your book right? Is it What Every Therapist Needs to Know About Anxiety Disorders?
Yes, and if anybody's interested in getting further help with their phobias or any sort of anxiety problem, they could go to the website of the ADAA, which is www.adaa.org.
Fantastic. Dr. Winston, thank you very much indeed for your help. I think she was really helping you there. I think that was...
I was very grateful.
5 or 10 minutes of free therapy there.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary stuff.
The day you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. But still before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train.
This is TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham. Mike Parry is here. Better catch your own hearse, I suppose, could be the reworked version of that, because Mike Parry's just been told by an anxiety specialist, a phobia specialist, the best thing he could do is to lie down in the back of a hearse and be driven around in it. I think maybe we should do that as some kind of a sponsored thing for charity.
I don't know.
I'll drive the hearse and you can lie in the back of it.
Disgracefully disrespectful. You were talking in the break about why don't we logo up the hearse with TalkSport stickers all over the place, drive you up and down Epsom High Street while you're lying in the back.
Well, in fact, I could be in the passenger seat. We could have a driver and we'd just do like a pub crawl around Surrey or something.
I'm not getting into this, honestly. I try to be serious. You know, there are lots of subjects that we like to treat lightheartedly on this show, but when it comes to the question of death, you know, the final frontier, old MG can just go around mocking and
I'm not mocking, I'm trying to help you.
Being disrespectful to those who have passed into the afterlife. By the way,
trying to help you.
I've been reading a fantastic serialisation of a book this week about the afterlife and all that, and so many strange things happen before your death. And do you know what one of them was? People who are about to die amazingly start talking about travel because they're going on a journey. Right. But they're not talking about, you know, chariot in the sky or golden visions. Right. They actually start asking people to look up timetables for trains and buses and all that, and they start...
What, you mean, are they compos mentis when they're doing this?
Well, nobody knows. Nobody knows whether it's a sixth sense or something like that they're going to die. They start talking about railway timetables, bus timetables, how much a taxi would cost or so. They start talking about travel. Now, this is very, very weird, Mike. You're not going to believe this, but... my father died quite suddenly in hospital over 30 years ago now. And in fact, I know exactly when it was, because this is the point of the story. My mother told me years later that when she went to see him, the day before he died, and this is quite remarkable, he said to my mum, you know, I'm getting up now and I'm going. And she said, Alan, that was my dad's name, what are you doing? And he had a little case that my mother brought for him after he was admitted to hospital.
Right,
his
like
things
an overnight bag or
and he started packing it up. She said, what are you doing, Alan? Where are you going? He said, I'm going to the Falklands. The Falklands War was on, right? Yeah. And I just arrived in London to work for the Express there, so I know exactly when it was. 81, I think that was, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And my mum said, what are you talking about? He said, no, I must. Now, my father was in the Royal Navy during the Second World War, so and the Royal Navy were dispatched to the Falklands. He said, no, I've got to go with the boys. I'm going now, and I'm going to join them in the Falklands. Now, my father had never had any dementia. He'd never had any mental illness.
So it wasn't that, because funny enough, I had a very similar experience with my own father.
Right.
Who was kind of getting into that kind of dementia area, and at one point, he was because my sister up on the wall of her house had a picture of him and his aircrew from World War II.
Wow.
And he said he was going to Canada.
Right.
And he started almost exactly the same conversation.
Really?
He said, I've got to go up to Canada to join up. But that was because his mental capacity was diminished by dementia, and he thought when he saw things like that that was the present day.
I see, yeah. Well, my father didn't have any mental problems at all, but it was astonishing when I read the book this week. It sent a shiver through me. I thought, golly, Mum told me the story about my dad talking about going on a journey to the Falklands. Anyway, there we are.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
A couple of texts and emails to read out to you, and some tweets as well, because you might remember a couple of weeks ago, actually, we were, in fact, it was this time last week, we were due to have that guy on from Bristol City. He wanted to give you a hard time. We couldn't find him in the end, so we don't know whatever happened to him. I think he must have just dropped out of it. But APB sent this in saying, I must mention, this is unmissable radio, he said, I must mention Mike Parry wanted posters are rife in Bristol. It says small reward for large personality. Which I think is quite a nice thing to say about
Quite nice, as long as they didn't say large person, just large personality is good. Yeah.
Well, and you remember Richard the other night from Hull, the truck driver.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
He's just sent us a text message
Has
as
he?
well because he's unable to ring up tonight. He says to 81089. He says, "Hi, Mike, it's Richard here, the Hull City fan who made a fool of Porky Parry on
What?
Monday night. He said, I've got a phobia. It's called Parryitis.
What?
He's afraid of dead people, but he's brain dead anyway. Many thanks. I'm off for a drive on the M63.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it? Trying to take the mickey out of me. Well, I'll tell you what, Rich, I put you in your place, not the other way around, mate. And that's, that's obvious to millions and millions of TalkSport listeners, eh?
And the other one that's come in is about Brazil. People are still pointing out the error of your ways. It says, Mike, tell Mr. Parry that Rio de Janeiro was the capital of Brazil from 1793 to 1960.
See, I knew that.
Before that, it was Salvador. From 1960 to the present, which is the last 54 years, it is Brasilia. Sao Paulo was never the capital.
Yeah, OK. Well, you might not think so, pal, but, I know things better than that. I've been to Brazil. I've been to the Americas. I've been to South America. I know the history of the place.
So that's another thing you've got wrong that you're not admitting to.
No, it might not.
I think you've actually got a phobia of being wrong.
It might not be documented, but then again, much of history is not documented. Do we know if any of the Bible's true? We just don't, do we?
Well, no. But
exactly.
It's
exactly.
kind of a large question to have to answer in the space of about 3 minutes, which is all we've got.
I don't think so.
Maybe we should talk about that next Thursday.
Oh, maybe, if you like. What are you talking to me about biscuits
now,
for,
we
anyway?
mentioned this in the paper review yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the papers yesterday. The works of William Cakespeare, a young man who worked for Sainsbury's, who's been fired, basically, because he was writing haikus, those Japanese...
no, I don't.
You don't know what haiku is? Well, haiku is a form of verse, but it's not actually...
It's not a form of verse. It doesn't rhyme.
No, it doesn't rhyme.
I've read this story since you pointed it out to me, and they're rubbish, those haikus. They're just a load of lines. They're not
that's exactly
poems.
Right. A haiku is basically a 4 or 5 line sort of poem, but it doesn't have to rhyme. That's the point.
Well, it's not a poem then.
Well, it can be a poem.
No, it's not a poem. If it doesn't rhyme, it's not a poem.
A poem does not have to rhyme.
It's just a statement. Right, are these statements about biscuits?
Well, they're statements about biscuits, and I think they're brilliant. I mean, we said this yesterday. One of them is, enjoy your cookies, every bite a minute. Every bite is a minute I'll never get back, which I think is great.
That's rubbish, that. What's that got to do with biscuits?
Well, it's philosophical, isn't it?
No, it's
Here's
rubbish.
one that says, £7 an hour is the price of my labour. Loyalty costs more. Genius.
Well, what is that all about?
Well, it's pointing out to people that he's in a job that he doesn't particularly like.
Well, he's a whinger. He shouldn't. Anyway, listen.
I think it says here the first victim of retail customer service is sincerity.
And that's another poem, is it?
Well, it's a haiku.
Well, yeah, but you told me a haiku's a Japanese poem.
It is.
It doesn't sound like a poem to me. Right, now, since I've seen that, I've written a couple of poems about biscuits, OK?
Are they haikus or are they?
No.
Do they rhyme?
They rhyme, of course, and I want our listeners to listen to these, please, compared to that rubbish that Mike Graham has just read to you.
This guy.
Just a load of drivel, sort of psychobabble rubbish. Here's a real poem, or a real couple of poems about biscuits, OK? Are you listening, Mike?
I'm listening.
Right, OK, here we go. Whilst fast asleep, I had a dream of munching on a custard cream. But when I woke up, feeling restive, I decided on a chocolate digestive. What are you laughing for?
Well, a 7-year-old.
But that rhymes.
It's like doggerel.
That rhymes.
Doggerel.
That rhymes. I've got another one.
Yeah, but the fact that it rhymes doesn't actually make it good.
It is. It's a great poem about a biscuit. This guy's in a biscuit factory writing these stupid
he's reflecting
Japanese nonsense.
He's reflecting on the nature of his life and his job.
Well, I'm reflecting on the nature of biscuits.
Digestives and custard
well,
creams.
here's another one for you. If you wanted poems about biscuits, I've got them for you, right? Here's another one. Right. A cup of tea and a hobnob bicky stop me feeling depressed and dicky. and hang on, let me finish. And if I'm feeling totally gone, I munch away on a chocolate bourbon. How about that?
Me. That's even worse than the first one.
That's really good. I like that.
The idea that you rhyme tea with, what was the first rhyme?
Let me have a look here. No, there's no rhyme with tea.
Again. Just read that one again.
All right, hang on. Right, a cup of tea and a hobnob bicky.
Yeah, you rhyme
stops
tea with bicky.
me feeling depressed and dicky.
Yeah, but you rhyme tea with bicky.
No, I don't. I rhyme bicky with dicky.
Here's one I've just had handed to me. I'm not going to claim ownership of this because it's almost as bad as one of yours.
Okay.
I love my job. It is great, but I'm often sat with a ginger nut.
Who could that be? You shouldn't be writing poems about Adrian Durham at this time of the day.
Yeah, very harsh. Your hair's not ginger anymore, it's true. We are the two Mikes, more coming up next. It's TalkSport Extra Time. I'm Mike Graham and Mike Parry is right next to me. We are the two Mikes, of course. Coming up in the next hour, we'll look ahead to those big games at the weekend, the Championship playoffs and, of course, the Champions League final. Both, Mike, of course, live TalkSport commentary.
Yeah, absolutely.
One at 3 o'clock, one at 7:45. By the way, before I want to talk to you about kids who've got their first jobs, because Brooklyn Beckham has got his first job, hasn't he?
Good for him. Yeah.
Is it a burger bar or a coffee shop? It's a coffee
I'm not
shop.
sure. It's a coffee shop, is it? Yeah.
But I just wanted. There's a great picture on page 3 of the Daily Mail this morning. Although I saw it on social media last night. The Shard being struck by a big bolt of lightning.
Amazing, isn't it?
And if you might remember those pictures, I mean, you would see them. They still happen from time to time. The Empire State Building getting struck.
That's right.
And the Eiffel Tower being struck
That's
as well.
right.
And apparently there were people inside the observation. Have you been up the Shard yet?
No, I haven't. No.
I must take you up there because you know there's quite a nice bar up the top
right.
of it,
Yeah.
which is quite expensive, mind you.
Oh, that's all right. We'll do
don't
it.
get your don't get your metal wallet out in there because it might get stuck to something.
Yeah.
But,
get my key out.
Don't bring whatever you do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to promise me something now. If we do go anywhere and you happen to bring the car, whether it's a restaurant or whatever it is, would you mind not bringing the can of peas with you?
No, I'm going to bring it with me because I don't. You see, if your keys are just in your pocket and somebody's walking past with a scanner, they'll scan all the details off your car fob and they'll take your car. So they remain in my tin, even if we're dining at a restaurant on the table.
Well, I'm not going anywhere
because
with you
of the metal protective barrier around the keys.
Like that scene in The Godfather, isn't it? You know, Godfather 2, where they have the wedding scene.
Right.
Or is it I think it is the second one. And, you know, Michael Corleone's moved out to Nevada.
Right.
And all the old Italian guys come out from New York. And they start offering them canopies.
Right.
And they're going, canopies? You know, they don't understand what canopies are. Because they want the sausage and peppers and all that kind of thing. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah,
but apparently there were people up the Shard, and I think it's on about the 28th or the 34th floor or something like that, where the observation
It's much higher than
deck
that, isn't it? Isn't it about the 66th floor or something?
Doesn't got that many floors, I don't think.
You sure?
Canary Wharf's only 48.
Yeah, well, that's bigger than Canary Wharf.
It is bigger than Canary Wharf, but when I went up there, I'm pretty sure the bar was on like the 33rd floor.
Okay.
So the observation deck maybe is on 40-something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, apparently they were all very, very scared because the sensation that they felt when the lightning struck the building made them all think that they were all going to somehow burn up and be electrocuted. But of course, it's got a lightning conductor on the top.
Sure.
So, but I was just going to ask you if you'd been struck, or not struck, but stuck in that big storm yesterday, because it was a remarkably quick. I was in. Came and went in about 20 minutes.
I was in Surrey. I couldn't believe it. 1 minute it was. It wasn't sunshine, but it was brightish. Then it got darkish, and then that expression "calm before the storm."
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And then it started. Excuse me, sort of pitter-pattering rain was what I'd call it. You know, it's just brushing on the windows, and then somebody turned the tap on, and it was literally bouncing off the pavement, bouncing off the road.
I woke up because it suddenly got very cold in my flat because the windows were open quite a long way, and it dropped by about 10 degrees, and then suddenly the rain was battering. I had to shut the windows because it was all coming in, and then 15 minutes later it was gone.
Yeah, it was all gone again. But it was so intense that it flooded all the drains, and so just a few yards down the road, instead of the drains taking water in, it was coming out like like one of those inverted waterfalls.
That's the thing I don't get about this country. Is we supposedly clear all the drains out, we get rid of all the leaves. You know, we have all this flooding, and then everybody learns lessons, and they say it's not going to happen again. But every time it rains now, in any way which is like a sort of a flash rainstorm, there's floods everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
I mean, why is it that the drain system can't take it?
In roundabouts, you see water collecting around roundabouts in this country in a most peculiar way, and it must be because of the camber on the road. And they must,
really?
Yeah,
I've never seen that. What you mean in the middle of the roundabout?
No, around the edges of the roundabout. So all the roads coming onto the roundabout, you're driving into a swimming pool.
Oh, well, because they're cambered away.
Cambered, that's right. You know, in whichever way they are, so that the cars go round them, don't sort of tip over or whatever, and it happens all the time in Surrey, and it's a damn nuisance.
It really is. Now, we were talking about that guy who put the haikus inside the biscuits. Let's talk about first-time jobs, because Brooklyn Beckham's got this job for the first time. I guess he's 15 or 16 or something.
Yeah, good for him, though.
It's amazing that he's grown up so quickly, isn't it? I mean, I remember when he was born.
I know, I remember when he was born. I remember David Beckham coming out of the hotel, the hospital, the Portland, was it, or the Wellington or something, and addressing the world's media, and, I'm a father and all that kind of stuff. And but how good of him, with his parents have got £150 million fortune, two of the most famous people in the world, literally. In fact, his father might even be the most famous man in the world. And there he is off on a weekend serving cakes and
It's
things.
it's the only thing that they should do, though. I mean, there's nothing worse than spoiled, rotten, horrible teenagers. I take it that you did a few strange... Well, you've already told us that you did that job in one of the supermarkets, didn't you? Did you not work at a supermarket? And you've also been telling us about working at a petrol station.
Worked at the petrol station, worked at a supermarket where I was hauling around 48 cans of Bonio at the same time. Yeah. That's where I got my muscles from. That's where my original body shape started. Literally was. In a warehouse, hauling around 48 tins of Bonio.
Didn't you have like a wagon to put them in?
No. It was all muscle power in those days. It had to be, that was the way we did it. It was, it was quite a...
What age were you when you were doing that?
About 13 or 14.
It might have stunted your growth.
No, it didn't stunt my growth. It gave me the shape I am now. I've got very broad shoulders and very big muscles on my shoulders. A very shapely body. And that okay. No, that...
You really believe that, don't you?
I do believe that.
You do honestly believe that?
A few female companions over the years have commented on it, And I think that all started from the Bonio days. But other jobs I had, weirdest one I had was... I was a marker for a helicopter spraying company.
A marker?
Yeah, a marker. What happened was this...
What, you mean you stood in a field?
That's right, absolutely. This helicopter flies up and down. Yeah, no, I'm serious. This helicopter flies up and down spraying crops. And when it comes to the end of the field, it goes up, it banks, and it comes back down again. And you've got to run exactly the yardage of the width of the last spray.
But what was it spraying?
It was spraying crops.
Right. But, I mean, what was coming out of it, though?
Well, like fertiliser or something.
Well, isn't that a bit dangerous?
You got it all over you.
Hazardous. Well, that couldn't be good for you.
You got it all over you. It couldn't have been good for you. And the other thing I had to do was, I had to...
So you're literally being sprayed by chemicals?
That's right. Yeah.
That's your job?
Agent Orange type, honestly, it was. It really was,
Well, that must explain a lot of things about you as well.
I don't know if it explains everything, but, nobody knew about it in those days. But the other thing was... you had to spot.
Did they not do it with planes, though, rather than helicopters?
No, this is a helicopter.
Surely a helicopter would disperse it in a way that they wouldn't want to do.
No. The helicopter had two arms fixed underneath it.
Oh, right, okay, right.
Like wings.
Yeah.
Like wings.
Like the things that come out of the farm machinery.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the other thing you had to do was, whenever the helicopter came down to a certain height, you were entirely responsible for pointing out power lines or telephone lines that would bring the helicopter down. Yeah, entirely responsible.
And so how low was it flying at this point?
It could be as low as...
A couple of 100 feet or something?
No. It's down... When it was spraying the crops, it was down to head height. It was just above your head.
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, it could get to, 20 feet in the next field or something like that. And you had to have eyes like a hawk to work out, was there a telephone line there?
And what age were you at this point?
About 15,
really?
16, yeah, something like that. And if you
can you imagine health and safety allowing you to do a job like that now?
Exactly. And if you made a mistake and it got tangled up in a telephone, the helicopter would crash into flames.
Well, hopefully that didn't happen.
It didn't happen, but it might have happened if I hadn't been so good at my job. Ball of flames, people dying and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, hugely responsible. I had another job where I drove around, so I must have been over 17 this time, in a huge, converted transit van, which had a huge tank on the back full of weed killer. And I used to have to go to stations and things.
See, now if you were driving around in a van like that, they'd think you were going to do a Timothy McVeigh, with all that kind of fertiliser bombs that people used to use.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And I had to go around spraying, platforms and all that kind of stuff to get rid of the weeds.
Get rid of the weeds. Outside, though, that would be?
No, inside as well, because you took a mobile unit, filled up with the stuff in the back of the tank, and went in and did it on the platforms as well.
Yeah, but, I mean, the platforms are outside platforms, British Rail platforms.
I'm sorry, yeah. I thought you meant outside the station. No, it's inside the station, but it was...
Did you have a mask for any of that?
No, never had a mask.
So you must have ingested a lot of chemicals then in your youth.
And I tell you what, it was the first time I had a vehicle which I could say I could use, because you could take the vehicle home at night, and nobody wanted that parked outside the front of the house. But I used to take all these girls out in, and they thought I was really cool. No.
Well, and you had all this fertiliser in the back.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Must have been a bit smelly.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit, to be honest, but I mean, in those days, nobody had a car.
If you had four wheels, didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that I had this huge hulking sort of van full of,
Well, that's it. I mean, I didn't learn to drive at all until I went to America when I was 23.
Well, right, there you go.
I was living in London, I just didn't need a car.
Well, I needed it where I was, like in Chester, because I had to get out to the country pubs and all that kind of stuff, and get over to Liverpool to watch Everton and all that kind of stuff. And so that was very useful.
But I mean, those sound like scary jobs. You certainly wouldn't want your kids doing that kind of jobs now, would you?
Well, maybe, I don't know. Did you ever do anything like that?
I didn't really, no. I kind of had one job from the age of 14. No, I worked, but I always worked in one place, which is bakery, this Hungarian bakery in Hampstead, where I started off just kind of picking strawberries. You'd have these boxes of strawberries. You just take the green bit out, and they would they would put them into cakes. And then as time went on, by the time I was about 16, I actually became quite proficient at making them, which is why I still like to cook and I still like to make cakes. And so every school holidays and every weekend, I used to work in this bakery making stuff, and I used to make quite a lot of money. Actually, in fact, the first job I got in a magazine, I was paid less money than I was making in a bakery.
That's amazing. Very first
20 quid a day.
Very first job I ever had was delivering papers, newspaper boy, when I was about 11, I think. And I was absolutely the king of the newspaper deliveries. I'd sometimes...
Of course you were, naturally.
I sometimes did 3 rounds.
By this time you were probably glowing in the dark with all the chemicals.
No, I was much younger in those days. I did 3 rounds in the time everybody else took to do 1. And the reason was I used to put a set of papers on the back, because everything's big canvas bags in those days, you know, and the papers weren't as heavy as they are now, you know, except for on a Friday when you had the Chester Chronicle, the weekly paper, massive thing. But I'd put a set on the back and a set on the front and a set on my crossbar, and off I'd go, and you know,
quite difficult to balance all of those.
It was very difficult to balance, and the tyres used to take a bit of stick as well, because there's a lot of weight on the bike, and you try getting up a hill with all those papers and all that. But I used to go from one round to the other and do them all, and still get back before the other dolts, you know, the leaden-footed half-bakes.
It's always been a battle for you, isn't it? I mean, you've got so many. I mean, we must get that phobia woman back on again, because I think there's so much to explore inside that brain of yours. Now, before I'm going to ask you about the 2 big games coming up, and ask you what you think the scores are going to be in a moment. But before we do that, just a couple of stories on the front pages that we should mention.
I totally agree.
One that you've noticed, very disturbing, really, about Paul McCartney on the front page of the Daily Mirror.
I know.
It says sick Macca in Tokyo hospital, and this started a couple of days ago. This story saying that he'd had to cancel his tour.
Well, he had to cancel. First of all, he cancelled one concert. Then he had to cancel the whole of the Japanese tour. But he's got a big tour of America coming up as well.
And they're calling it a mystery illness. It's a bit worrying. This, isn't
I know. It's very worrying. And do you know what? Because you and I have antennae for these sort of things. The minute I saw it announced that he'd cancelled the one tour, I sent out a tweet immediately saying, you know, good wishes to Paul McCartney. Cancelling, you know, let's hope it is nothing more than temporary. And because we've seen these things before. I mean, do you remember...
I mean, he is 71, and I suppose he seems pretty fit, doesn't he? Because, I mean, he performs around the place quite a lot, and it's possible. I mean, you can get a virus at that kind of age, and it could be very debilitating.
I don't want to be maudlin, I don't want to, you know, start thinking the worst, but we have seen reports of Hollywood stars who've suddenly been taken ill, isn't it? And the worst possible things can happen. They can turn out like that, especially at this age. So I'm just saying that I've got some instinct in me thinking, crikey, I hope this isn't much worse than we think it is. And of course, send out best wishes from here from TalkSport for Paul McCartney.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our eyes on that.
Greatest living Englishman.
And hope he gets better. Now, there's just time for you to quickly predict what the scores are going to be. Now, if you're a QPR or a Derby fan, you want to be very, very interested in this, because we all know that the Porky Jinx is alive and well. Normally, when you say one thing, the opposite happens. So what's going to happen QPR Derby?
I want QPR to shade it by 1 goal, and I think they will. And the reason I'm not being selective is I do have a soft spot for Harry. I think he's treated disgracefully at Spurs, and if he could bounce back now into the Premier League, I think it would be natural justice. I'll say QPR by 1 goal.
Particularly since Spurs are having such a bad time finding a manager of their own. What about the Champions League final? Madrid moves to Lisbon for the night. Atletico against Real Madrid. They haven't got Diego Costa, but Real Madrid have got Ronaldo and Gareth Bale.
Yeah, you can't say anything other than a Real Madrid result, can you? I mean,
well, I suppose you'd say that, yeah.
I mean, they are Real Madrid. This is the big one, because if they win this one, they've won it 10 times, in the Champions League / European Cup 10 times, and you just can't possibly see Atletico upsetting the apple cart.
No.
I know they've stolen La Liga. Well, not stolen it, they've won it justifiably. Well done, yeah, exactly. But I just can't see that repeating itself in Europe. It's got to be Madrid by 2 goals. Real. You think about 2-0 or 4-2 or what? I'd say 3-1 perhaps.
3-1, okay.
Yeah.
The Portmeister has spoken. QPR are going to win, and so are Real Madrid. So if you've been following some of his predictions in the past, you may want to go completely the other way. Mike, thank you very much indeed. I hope you don't have any trouble driving past the mortuary on the way home.
Well, I won't. I'll go around the corner.
And make sure that you look around very closely when there's a big magnet outside, in case they're going to try and steal your keys out of that tin.
They won't.
There'll be an iTunes podcast of the 2 Mikes coming out in a few hours' time. Mr. Parry and I will be back very, very soon right here on TalkSport.
I'm Mickey Quinn, and that was the 2 Mikes on TalkSport.